Hello friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. The night shift in the French Quarter always carries a different weight. What tourists see during the day, all that bright jazz and laughter, it melts away after midnight. The streets get darker, heavier somehow. The humidity wraps around you like wet cotton. You can smell the Mississippi even blocks away, that thick, muddy scent mixing with old beer and something else, something older. I'm Marcus LaRue. Been with NOPD going on 7 years now. My partner Darian Boudreau has 3 years on me, and he's the kind of guy you want next to you when things get sideways. Doesn't talk much, but he's solid. That Tuesday night, November 15th, we drew Royal Street and the surrounding blocks for our patrol route. Quiet night coming, Darian said as he slid behind the wheel. Middle of the week, not even a Saints game. I buckled in, adjusted my vest. Let's hope you're right. We rolled out of the station just after 10. The streets were emptier than usual, even for a Tuesday. Esplanade Avenue stretched out before us, streetlights making halos in the damp air. You could feel the moisture on your skin, that New Orleans humidity that never really leaves, even in November. We turned onto Royal Street. During the day, this stretch is all antique shops and art galleries. Tourists everywhere, cameras out, probably paying $20 for a hand grenade drink they'll regret in an hour. But at night, it's just dark storefronts and shadows. The old Creole buildings lean in close on both sides, their wrought iron balconies dripping with ferns and last week's rain. I keyed the radio. Unit 47, starting patrol on Royal Street. Solange Thibodeau's voice came through the static. Solange works dispatch on the night shift, and her voice is the one that guides us through the dark hours. Static. Copy that, 47. Royal Street is clear. Stay safe out there. 10-4. Darian took us down Dauphine Street, moving slow. This area gets narrower, the buildings pressing in tighter. Old Creole architecture. The kind that survived Katrina and 100 years before that. You could see the history in every cracked brick, every sagging balcony. That building's still empty, Darian said, nodding toward a 3-story structure on our right. Nobody's lived there since the storm. I looked up at it. The first-floor windows were boarded up with plywood that had gone gray with age. The upper floors were just dark glass. But for just a second, I could have sworn I saw a flicker of light in one of those second-floor windows. You see that? I asked. Darian hit the brakes, threw it in reverse. We both stared up at that window. Nothing. Just darkness and the reflection of our headlights. A street lamp, probably, Darian said. That building's been dead for years. No power, no water. Checked it myself last week. Made sense. We moved on. The night deepened around us. From somewhere over on Bourbon Street, you could hear music drifting through the air. A trumpet, low and mournful. That sound is the heartbeat of this city, always there, always playing. Sometimes I think New Orleans would stop breathing if the music ever died. It was just past 11:30 when the radio crackled to life. Static, Unit 47. Static. Darian grabbed it. 47 here, go ahead. Static. Chartres Street, we have a call. Static. Disturbance. The static got worse, drowning out Solange's voice. Darian clicked the transmit button a few times. Dispatch, you're breaking up. Say again? Nothing but static for a few seconds. Then Solange's voice came through clearer. Unit 47, we need you to check on Unit 32. They were responding to a disturbance call on Chartres Street near Ursuline's. We've lost contact. I felt something cold settle in my gut. Losing radio contact isn't that unusual in the quarter. The old buildings, the narrow streets, they play hell with signals sometimes, but something about Solange's voice sounded off. Tense. Copy that, Darian said. What was their last known position? Static. Corner of Chartres and Ursuline. Static. 12 minutes ago. 12 minutes. That's a long time to be out of contact. We turned onto Chartres Street, moving faster now. The buildings here are even older, some of them dating back to the 1700s. Spanish colonial, French Creole, all of it packed tight together. The street was empty, not a soul in sight. There, I said, pointing ahead. A police cruiser sat at the intersection with Ursuline's, lights off, just sitting there dark and silent. Darian pulled up behind it, and we both got out. The humidity hit me immediately, that thick, wet air that makes your uniform stick to your skin. I put my hand on my sidearm, though I didn't draw it. Not yet. Unit 32, I called out. It's LaRue and Boudreau. No answer. The cruiser's windows were rolled up. I moved closer, shining my flashlight through the driver's side window. Empty. Both front seats, nobody there. Check the trunk, Darian said, already moving around back. The trunk was closed and locked. No signs of struggle, no damage to the vehicle. It was like the officers had just gotten out and walked away. I keyed my radio. Dispatch Unit 47. We've located Unit 32's vehicle on Chartres Street. Vehicle is empty, no sign of the officers. Static, copy that. Static, do you see? Static. The static was getting worse. I tried again. Dispatch, you're breaking up. Please repeat. Static, the alley. Static, check the alley. Static. I looked at Darian. He was already looking past the cruiser toward a narrow alley that ran between two buildings. The kind of alley that doesn't even show up on most maps. Just a gap between structures, barely wide enough for one person. We moved toward it. Our flashlights cut through the darkness, but they didn't penetrate very far. The alley went back maybe 30 feet before turning to the left. The walls on either side were old brick, crumbling in places, covered with a slick film of moisture and mold. NOPD, Darian called out. Anyone down here? His voice echoed off the walls. Then silence. That heavy, wet silence that New Orleans does so well. We started down the alley. Our footsteps sounded too loud, splashing through puddles that never seemed to dry out. The smell hit me about halfway down. Not sewage, not garbage. Something else. Something that made the hair on my neck stand up. At the corner, where the alley turned left, Darian stopped. He was staring down at something on the ground. I moved up beside him and saw it too. A radio, one of ours, NOPD issue, just sitting there in a puddle, water seeping into its circuits. I picked it up. The casing was cracked, but when I pressed the transmit button, I got a squeal of feedback. Still had some power. That's Fisher's radio, Darian said quietly. Unit 32. I recognized the sticker on the back. Officer Fisher. I knew him, not well, but enough to nod to in the locker room. Good cop. Young, maybe 26. Always had a smile. Fisher? I called out. It's Marcus LaRue. You down here? Nothing. Just our breathing and the distant sound of that trumpet still playing somewhere. We turned the corner. The alley continued for another 20 feet before dead-ending at a brick wall. No doors, no windows, no way out, and no Fisher. This doesn't make sense, I said. Where the hell did he go? Darian was shining his light up and down the walls. Fire escape, maybe? Could have climbed out, but there was no fire escape. No ladder, no handholds, nothing. Just smooth brick walls, slick with moisture, too high to climb without equipment. I keyed my radio. Dispatch, Unit 47. We found Officer Fisher's radio in an alley off Chartres. No sign of Fisher or his partner. We need additional units and a supervisor out here. The response was immediate, but it wasn't Solange. It was a male voice, one I didn't recognize. Static. Negative on additional units. Static. Return to patrol. I frowned. Dispatch, say again, we have missing officers. Static. Return to patrol. Static. Then the radio went completely dead. Not just static, but total silence. I checked the battery. Full charge. Signal indicator showed nothing. My radio's dead, I said. Darian checked his. Mine too. What the hell? We stood there in that alley for a moment, both of us thinking the same thing. This wasn't right. None of it was right. Let's get back to the car, Darian said. Use the mobile unit to call it in. We walked back down the alley, our flashlights creating long shadows on the walls. When we reached Chartres Street, I expected to see our cruiser right where we left it, maybe 10 yards away. It wasn't there. I blinked, trying to process what I was seeing, or rather what I wasn't seeing. The street was completely empty. No cruiser, no Unit 32's car either, just empty asphalt under the yellow glow of street lamps. Where's our car? I said, but it came out almost like a whisper. Darian didn't answer. He was turning in a slow circle, looking up and down the street. This is Chartres, right? Corner of Ursulines. I looked at the street signs. They were there, green and white, exactly where they should be. Chartres and Ursulines. We couldn't have gotten turned around, I said. We just walked straight back. But apparently we had. Or something had happened. Something I couldn't explain. Check your phone, Darian said. I pulled out my cell. No signal, not even one bar. Darian and Zim showed the same thing. Okay, he said, and I could hear him working to keep his voice steady. We walk back to the station. It's only 6 blocks. We file a report. Get this sorted out. It made sense. It was the logical thing to do. But standing there on that empty street, with the humidity pressing down and the smell of the river in the air, logic felt like something from another world. We started walking. Our footsteps echoed off the buildings. Somewhere, that trumpet was still playing. The same low, mournful note, over and over. After 2 blocks, Darian stopped. You notice something? What? We haven't seen anyone. No cars, no people, nothing. He was right. Chartres Street should have had at least a few people, even on a Tuesday night. Late-night workers, bar staff heading home, someone. But it was like we were walking through a movie set after everyone had gone home. We kept moving. The street lamps buzzed overhead, that electric hum that usually fades into background noise. But tonight it sounded louder, more insistent. Or maybe I was just paying attention to everything now, every little sound and shadow. When we reached Royal Street, I expected to turn left towards the station, but Darian grabbed my arm. Look, he said, pointing straight ahead. Down Royal Street, about half a block away, there was someone. A figure, standing motionless under a street lamp. Too far away to make out details, but definitely a person. Hey, I called out. NOPD, we need assistance. The figure didn't move, didn't respond, just stood there. We started toward it, picking up our pace. But as we got closer, maybe 20 yards away, the figure turned. Not quickly, but with this slow, deliberate movement. Then it stepped off the sidewalk and into a side street, disappearing from view. Wait! Darian shouted, and we both broke into a run. We reached the side street in seconds. It was one of those narrow passages between buildings, not quite an alley, but not a full street either. Our flashlights cut into the darkness. Empty. Nobody there. "Did you see where they went?" I asked. Darian shook his head. "They were just there. They couldn't have gotten far. But they were gone." And standing there in that narrow passage, with the old buildings pressing in on both sides and the humidity making it hard to breathe, I felt something I hadn't felt in my 7 years on the force. Fear. Real fear. "We need to get back to the station," I said. "Now." We didn't run, but we moved fast. Training keeps you from panicking. Keeps you moving even when every instinct is screaming at you to freeze. We stayed in the middle of the street, away from the dark doorways and alleys. The station should have been 3 more blocks. But after walking what felt like twice that distance, we were still surrounded by the same old buildings, the same empty streets. It was like the city had rearranged itself around us. Darian stopped at an intersection. "This isn't right. We should have hit Canal Street by now." I checked the street signs. Decatur and St. Philip. We'd been heading in the right direction, but somehow we weren't getting any closer to where we needed to be. "My body cam," I said suddenly, reaching for the device clipped to my vest. Department policy requires we wear them on every shift. If the radio's dead, at least we're recording this. I pressed the button to check the status. The little screen lit up, showing the time and date. But something was wrong with the time. It read 03:11 a.m. "That can't be right," I said. It was just after midnight when we found Fisher's radio. Darian checked his watch. It showed 12:47 a.m. I looked at the body cam screen again. Still showing 03:11. Then, as I watched, the display flickered, went black for a second. When it came back on, it was showing a recording. Not real time, but playback. The image was dark, grainy, but I could make out what it was showing. A narrow alley, brick walls on either side. The same alley where we'd found Fisher's radio. "Is that your camera?" Darian asked, leaning in to see. "I don't know. I didn't record anything there. I didn't even turn it on." But the video kept playing. The camera's point of view was moving forward down the alley, the same path we'd taken. Then it reached the corner, and I saw something that made my blood freeze. On the ground, right where we'd found the radio, there was someone lying there. A body, face down in the water. The camera moved closer. Close enough to see the uniform, the badge, the name tag. LaRue. It was me. I yanked the body cam off my vest and nearly threw it. The screen went black, then flickered back to life showing the normal view. Live feed. The time now reading 12:49 a.m. "What the hell was that?" Darian's voice was shaking. "I don't know," I said. "Some kind of malfunction. Has to be." But I didn't believe that, and from the look on Darian's face, he didn't either. We needed to move. Needed to get somewhere with lights and people and radios that worked. We started walking again, faster now. The trumpet music had stopped. I hadn't even noticed when. Now there was only the sound of our footsteps and the electric buzz of the street lamps. When we turned onto Bourbon Street, I expected to see something. Anything. This was Bourbon Street. It never completely died. But it was empty. Every bar dark, every door closed. No music, no voices, nothing. "This is wrong," Darian said. "This is all wrong." We were almost jogging now. Past Lafitte's, past the old Absinthe House, past a dozen other landmarks that sat dark and silent. It felt like we were the only 2 people left in the world. Then I heard it. A voice, crackling through the dead radio on my belt. "Static, Unit 47, static. Do you copy? Static." I grabbed the radio, hope surging. This is 4-7. We copy. We need assistance. Static. Chartres Street. Static. Check the alley. Static. The same message we'd heard before. Word for word. Dispatch, we already checked the alley, I said into the radio. We found Fisher's radio but no sign of him or his partner. We need backup at our location. Static. Chartres Street. Static. Check the alley. Static. Exactly the same. Like a recording playing on loop. I tried again. Solange, this is Marcus. Can you hear me? We need help. Static. Chartres Street. Static. Check the alley. Static. Darian's radio crackled to life with the same message. Then both radios went silent again. Completely dead. We stood there on Bourbon Street, surrounded by empty bars and dark windows, and I felt something that all my training, all my years on the force, couldn't prepare me for. We were lost. Not just physically lost in streets we'd walked 1,000 times. We were lost in something else, something that didn't follow the rules I understood. Look, Darian said quietly, pointing down the street. There was a light in one of the buildings. Not a street lamp, but a warm glow coming from inside what looked like an old bar. The sign above the door was too faded to read, but the light was there, definitely there. We approached slowly. The door was closed but unlocked. I pushed it open. Inside was a bar, just like 100 others in the quarter. Wooden floor, long counter, bottles on shelves. But it was abandoned. Dust on everything, chairs stacked on tables. Nobody had been in here in years, and yet light was coming from somewhere. Old Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling, all of them lit, all of them glowing. No power, Darian said, more to himself than to me. Building's been condemned for years. There's no power. But the lights were on. We could both see them. I moved to the bar, and that's when I saw it. A logbook sitting on the counter. The kind we use to record our patrol routes and incidents. It was open to a page with today's date at the top. No, not today's date. Tomorrow's date. November 16th. I read the entry written there in handwriting I didn't recognize. 03:11 a.m. Unit 47 found abandoned on Chartres Street. Officers LaRue and Boudreau missing. Last known contact 12:47 a.m. Search ongoing. My hands were shaking as I reached for the book. But before I could touch it, all the lights went out. Complete darkness. So sudden and total that I couldn't see my own hand in front of my face. Then we heard footsteps, not ours, coming from somewhere in the back of the bar, moving toward us. Slow, deliberate footsteps that splashed through puddles that shouldn't be there on a wooden floor. We need to leave, Darian said. Now. We didn't need to say it twice. We ran for the door, burst out onto Bourbon Street. The lights out there were still working, still casting that yellow glow over everything. But now the street wasn't empty. There were people. Dozens of them, maybe more. All standing perfectly still, all facing our direction. Men, women, different ages. All wearing clothes from different eras. Some looked almost normal, like they could be from last week. Others wore styles from decades ago, centuries ago. And they were all looking at us. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. They just stood there, their eyes following us as we backed away. Some of their faces were clear in the light. Others were shadowed, details lost. But their eyes, those I could see, all of them fixed on us with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Back to the alley, I said quietly. Back to where we found the radio. I don't know why I said it. It wasn't logical, wasn't tactical, but something told me we needed to go back to where this all started. We moved slowly at first, then faster as the crowd behind us began to shift. not coming toward us but moving, adjusting positions like pieces on a chessboard. We broke into a run. The streets blurred past. I wasn't even sure we were going the right way anymore. Nothing looked familiar. The buildings seemed to lean in closer with every turn, the street lamps dimmer, the shadows deeper. Then suddenly we were there. Chartres and Ursuline's. The same intersection where we'd found Unit 32's car. And the car was back, sitting exactly where it had been before. Lights off, empty. We ran to the alley. Same narrow passage, same brick walls. Our flashlights showed the same puddles, the same dead end. But Fisher's radio was gone. Just a dark spot on the ground where it had been. "What do we do?" Darian asked. His voice was high, tight, on the edge of breaking. I didn't have an answer. Everything I'd been trained for, everything I knew about being a cop, none of it applied here. We were in something that didn't care about procedure or protocol. My body cam clicked on by itself. I looked down at the screen. It was recording again, but the timestamp showed 03:11 a.m. That number, I realized, it kept showing up. On the body cam before, on the logbook entry, now on the live feed. "What happens at 3:11? I said out loud. Darian checked his watch. "It's almost 1 now. We've got 2 hours. 2 hours until what?" I didn't want to find out, but I had a feeling we didn't have a choice. We waited there in that alley for a few minutes trying to think, trying to plan. Then we heard sirens, real sirens, getting closer. I felt a surge of hope. Maybe this was over. Maybe help was coming. We ran back to Chartres Street. 2 police cruisers were pulling up, lights flashing. The doors opened and officers got out. I recognized them, Johnson and Martinez from the day shift. Relief flooded through me. "Johnson," I called out. "Man, are we glad to see you." But Johnson didn't respond. He and Martinez walked right past us, like we weren't even there. They went straight to Unit 32's abandoned car and started looking around it. "Johnson," I said again, stepping in front of him. "It's Marcus LaRue." He walked through me. Not around me, through me, like I was a ghost, like I wasn't really there. I spun around, looked at Darian. He'd gone pale, his eyes wide. "They can't see us," he said. Martinez was on his radio now. I could hear him clearly. "Dispatch, we've got Unit 32's vehicle. Still no sign of the officers. Requesting additional units to search the area." "We're right here," I shouted. "We're right here." But they couldn't hear me, couldn't see me. We had become invisible, or they had, or reality had split somehow, and we were on the wrong side of it. Johnson opened the driver's door of Unit 32's car. "Check this out," he called to Martinez. "The computer's still logged in. Last entry was at midnight. Call about a disturbance on Chartres." I watched them work the scene, calling for backup, photographing the vehicle, searching the area. All standard procedure. All completely useless because they were looking in the wrong place. Or maybe the wrong time. Then I noticed something. In the window of a building across the street, there was a reflection. Not of Chartres Street as it was now, with Johnson and Martinez and their cruisers, but of Chartres Street as it had been. Empty and dark. And in that reflection, I could see 2 figures standing in the middle of the road. Darian and me, watching ourselves be invisible. "The body cam," Darian said suddenly. "If it's recording, there'll be footage. Evidence that we were here." I looked down at the device. Still recording, still showing 03:11 a.m. on the timestamp. Hours ahead of real time, if real time even existed anymore. More sirens, more cruisers arriving. I saw Lieutenant Graves get out, the night shift supervisor. He was talking to Johnson, taking charge of the scene. They were all so focused, so professional, doing their jobs exactly right, and it wouldn't matter at all. "We need to move," I said. "We're wasting time here." "Time to do what?" Darian asked. "Where do we go?" I didn't know, but standing there watching our fellow officers search for us while we stood invisible in front of them, that wasn't going to help. We walked, not sure where we were going, just moving. The French Quarter stretched out around us, familiar and foreign at the same time. Every street was one I'd walked 100 times before. Every building was one I knew. But it all felt wrong now, like a copy of the real thing that was just slightly off. We passed Jackson Square. The cathedral loomed dark against the night sky. The fence around the square was locked, the gates chained. But as we walked by, I could see movement inside. Shadows moving across the grass, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all walking in the same slow circle around the statue in the center. "Don't look at them," Darian said, his voice barely above a whisper. But I couldn't help it. The shadows were people, or had been people. Some of them wore modern clothes. Others wore styles from another era. All of them walked that same slow circle, round and round, their feet never quite touching the ground. We kept moving. At some point the sun should have started to rise. Dawn should have broken. But the night just continued, stretching on and on. My watch said it was 2:30 a.m. Still, over half an hour until that time. 03:11. That kept appearing. We found ourselves back on Royal Street, the same route we'd started with, back when this was just another Tuesday night patrol, back when the world made sense. Darian stopped suddenly. "The building," he said. "The one I said was empty." I looked up. The 3-story structure with the boarded windows. We'd seen something there at the start of the shift, a flicker of light, and now I could see it again, clearer this time. Second floor, a window with light behind it. "Nobody lives there," Darian said. "Nobody can live there." But the light was there. And standing in that window I could see a silhouette. A person, or something shaped like one, standing perfectly still. My body cam clicked. I looked down. The screen had changed. It was showing playback again, not live feed. The video was shaky like someone running. The timestamp showed 03:09 a.m., 2 minutes before that time. The camera was moving through an alley, the same alley where we'd found Fisher's radio. Then it turned a corner, and I saw something that made my heart stop. There were bodies, dozens of them, lying in the puddles, all wearing NOPD uniforms, all face down. The camera moved among them, and I could see name tags. Fisher, his partner Dalton, others I didn't recognize. Then the camera turned, pointing back the way it had come, and I saw what was at the end of the alley. The thing that had put all those officers down. It wasn't anything I could describe. The body cam video quality wasn't good enough to show details, or maybe there weren't details to show. Just a shape, a presence, something that existed in the space where light didn't quite reach. But I could see its eyes, or what served as eyes. Fixed on the camera, fixed on whoever was holding it. The video cut out. The screen went black. Then it came back on, showing the normal live feed. The timestamp read 02:45 a.m. "What was that?" Darian asked. He'd been watching over my shoulder. "I don't know," I said. "But I think it's where we end up, where all of this is leading. Unless we can stop it." "How? We can't even get anyone to see us. We're stuck in some kind of loop, and I don't know how to break it." But even as I said it, I was thinking, there had to be a way. There was always a way. You just had to find it. The light in the second floor window went out. Then, a few seconds later, I saw it appear in a first-floor window. Then it was gone from there and showing up in another building down the street. Moving, jumping from place to place. "It's leading us somewhere," Darian said. He was right. The light was moving in a pattern, a direction, toward the river. We followed it, through streets that should have been familiar but felt increasingly alien. The old buildings pressed closer. The air got heavier, that river smell stronger. We were heading toward the Mississippi. The light led us to a warehouse district near the water. Old structures that dated back to when New Orleans was a major port, before containerization changed everything. Most of these buildings were abandoned now, left to rot in the humidity. The light appeared in a warehouse window. Then it went out. We waited, but it didn't come back on anywhere else. "End of the line," I said. The warehouse door was unlocked. We pushed it open and went inside. It was huge. Empty space stretching back into darkness, support pillars rising up to a ceiling I couldn't see. Our flashlights barely made a dent in the shadows. The smell hit me immediately. Old wood, rust, and underneath it all, that same smell from the alley. The one that made my skin crawl. "Police?" I called out, my voice echoing in the vast space. "Anyone here?" The echo came back to us, then faded. Silence. We moved forward, flashlights sweeping back and forth. Water dripped somewhere, a steady rhythm that seemed too regular, too deliberate. Our footsteps splashed through puddles that shouldn't exist this far from the river. Then I saw them. Against the far wall, maybe 100 feet away. Shapes. Dozens of them standing in a line. We approached slowly. As we got closer, I could make out what they were. Police cruisers. All NOPD, all arranged in a perfect row. The headlights were on, all of them, creating a wall of light that was almost blinding. And standing in front of the cruisers, illuminated by their lights, were people, officers. At least 50 of them, maybe more. All in uniform, all standing at attention. Fisher was there. I recognized him immediately. And his partner Dalton. Others, too. Some I knew by sight, others I'd never seen before. Some wore uniforms that looked current. Others wore styles from years ago, decades ago. They were all staring at us. Nobody moved, nobody spoke, just watched with eyes that caught the headlight glare and reflected it back. I checked my watch, 03:10 a.m., 1 minute until that time. "Marcus," Darian said quietly, "we need to leave right now." But I couldn't move. I was transfixed by those officers, by their faces that showed no emotion, no recognition. They knew something we didn't. They had seen something we were about to see. My body cam clicked on. I looked down. The screen showed 03:11 a.m., the timestamp I'd been seeing all night. It was happening now. The officers in front of the cruisers moved. All at once, all in perfect synchronization, they turned 90 degrees to their left. Then they began to walk. Not toward us, but in a line, moving along the wall of the warehouse. A slow, steady march. As they walked, they faded. Not all at once, but gradually. After 10 steps, they were translucent. After 20, they were barely visible. After 30, they were gone completely. New officers took their place. Emerging from the darkness behind the cruisers, moving into position, standing at attention. And I recognized them too. Unit 3-2, the officers we'd been sent to find. They came walking out of the shadows, faces blank, eyes forward. They took their positions in line with the others and stopped, stood still, became part of the formation. Then I saw who was behind them. 2 more officers walking in step, and even before they reached the light, even before I could make out their faces clearly, I knew who they were. One of them was me. The other was Darien. We watched ourselves walk into position, watched ourselves stand at attention with all the others. Our faces showed nothing. No fear, no confusion. Just empty compliance. "No," Darien said. "No, that's not... We're here. We're right here." But the versions of us standing in formation didn't react. Didn't even seem to know we existed. My watch beeped. 03:11 a.m. exactly. The warehouse lights came on. Not the headlights of the cruisers, but the overhead lights of the warehouse itself. Sodium vapor lamps, the kind that take a minute to warm up, flickering to life one by one. And in their light, I could see what was at the center of the warehouse, what all those officers were facing. It was an alley, impossible, but there it was. A narrow passage between brick walls, exactly like the one where we'd found Fisher's radio. It sat in the middle of the warehouse floor like a stage set, but it went back farther than should be possible. The walls extended into a darkness that the warehouse lights couldn't penetrate. From that darkness, something was moving. Coming forward, taking its time. I wanted to run. Every nerve in my body was screaming at me to turn and run. But I couldn't move. Neither could Darien. We just stood there watching it approach. It was shaped like a person, roughly. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. But the proportions were wrong. The movements were wrong. It walked with a gait that didn't match any living thing I'd ever seen. As it got closer, I could see its uniform. An OPD issue, just like mine. But old, weathered, rotting. The badge was tarnished. The name tag was too faded to read. It stopped at the mouth of the alley, stood there swaying slightly. Then its head turned, scanning the rows of officers standing at attention, looking for something, or someone. My body cam clicked. The screen showed static for a moment, then cleared. It was recording everything. The figure from the alley raised one arm, pointed at the formation of officers. Its finger moved along the line like it was counting, selecting. When its finger stopped, it was pointing at the 2 figures at the end of the line, the ones that looked like Darien and me. Those 2 figures began to walk. Moving in perfect unison, they approached the alley, approached that thing standing at its entrance. They showed no hesitation, no fear. They just walked. When they reached the figure, it stepped aside, gestured them forward into the alley, into that darkness. They went. Without looking back, without pausing, they walked into that darkness and were gone. The figure turned its head. It was looking at us now, the real us, standing there in the warehouse. I could feel its gaze, even though I couldn't make out any eyes. It raised its arm again, pointed directly at us. "Run," I said. We ran, back toward the warehouse door, our footsteps echoing, our breath coming in gasps. Behind us I could hear something else. More footsteps. Dozens of them. The sound of that entire formation of officers moving in unison. We burst through the door and into the night. The street outside was no longer empty. There were cruisers everywhere, lights flashing, officers standing around talking on radios, the normal chaos of a crime scene. Except they still couldn't see us. We ran right through the middle of them and they didn't react. "The alley!" Darien shouted. "We have to get back to the original alley." I didn't question it. We ran through the French Quarter, past streets and buildings that had returned to their normal state. There were even a few late-night stragglers out now, tourists heading back to hotels. But none of them saw us. We reached Chartres Street. The alley where this had all started was still there, still dark and narrow. We plunged into it without slowing down. And the moment we crossed the threshold, everything changed. The sounds of the city came rushing back. Sirens, voices, radio chatter. I could feel my phone vibrating in my pocket, multiple missed calls. My radio crackled to life with normal traffic. Darian grabbed my arm. "Can you hear that?" I could, all of it. The normal sounds of a normal night in New Orleans. We walked out of the alley. Lieutenant Graves was standing there, directing officers. When he saw us, his eyes went wide. "LaRue? Boudreaux? Where the hell have you been?" I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. What could I say? How could I explain? "We," Darian started, then stopped. We got turned around. "Lost radio contact." Graves looked at us like we were crazy. "Lost contact? You've been gone for 4 minutes. We just got here." I checked my watch. 12:51 a.m. 4 minutes since we'd entered the alley to look for Fisher's radio. But that was impossible. We'd been gone for hours. We'd seen things, been to places. The warehouse, the officers, all of it. "Your body cam," Graves said, pointing at my vest. "It's recording. Let me see the footage." With shaking hands, I removed the camera and handed it over. Graves pressed the playback button. The screen showed static for a moment. Then it cleared, showing footage of the alley. Just the alley, normal and empty. 4 minutes of us walking around looking for something that wasn't there. No strange timestamp, no bodies, no future vision. "Nothing here," Graves said, handing it back. "False alarm on the missing officers, too. Fisher and Dalton just radioed in. They were in a dead zone, but they're fine." "They're okay?" I said. "Yeah. Now, stop screwing around and get back to your patrol." He walked away, leaving us standing there. Darian and I looked at each other. In his eyes, I could see the same question I was asking myself. Had it been real? Any of it? My phone buzzed. A text message. I didn't recognize the number, but the message was clear enough. "Check your body cam. Private storage. Password 0311. I looked at the body cam, entered the password into the settings menu. A hidden folder appeared, one I didn't know existed. Inside was a video file. Timestamp 03:11 a.m. November 16th. Tomorrow. I played it, the warehouse. The officers, the alley, the figure, all of it captured in perfect detail. Everything we'd experienced, everything we'd seen. It was all there. And at the end of the video there was something else. A final shot, looking back at the warehouse as we ran. In that shot, you could see the formation of officers. And at the end of the line, 2 figures that looked exactly like Darian and me. But here's what made my blood freeze. Those 2 figures weren't just standing there anymore. They were slowly turning their heads, looking at the camera, looking at us, and they were smiling. I deleted the video, deleted the entire folder, but I knew it wouldn't matter. It would come back. These things always come back. Darian and I returned to our patrol, finished the shift without incident, wrote a report that contained nothing but lies and omissions. What else could we do? But I still think about that night, about the warehouse and the alley and all those officers standing in formation, about Fisher and Dalton, who according to official records were never really missing at all. And every time I check my body cam now, I see that timestamp, 03:11 a.m. It's always there, in the corner of the screen, a reminder, a warning, a promise that one night I'll be called back to that alley, and when I am, I'll take my place in the formation with all the others. I'll stand at attention and wait for the next group of officers to stumble into something they can't understand, because that's how it works in the French Quarter. The old city keeps its secrets, and sometimes those secrets keep us. 3 weeks passed after that night. 3 weeks of ordinary shifts, routine calls, normal police work. Fisher and Dalton never mentioned anything unusual. According to them, they'd responded to the call on Chartres Street, found nothing, and briefly lost radio contact in a dead zone. Standard stuff. Darian and I never talked about what we'd seen. Not directly. But sometimes I'd catch him staring at his watch when it got close to 3:11, morning or afternoon. He'd look at me, and I'd look back, and we'd both know what the other was thinking. The body cam files stayed deleted. But every time I checked, that hidden folder was there. Empty, but present. Like it was waiting. I started having dreams. Always the same. Walking through the French Quarter at night, following a light that moved from window to window. Always ending at that warehouse by the river. Always seeing that formation of officers. Always waking up just as that figure from the alley pointed at me. Work became a way to not think about it. I took extra shifts, volunteered for details. Anything to stay busy, to keep my mind occupied with problems that had solutions. It was during one of those extra shifts, a Thursday night in early December, when things started again. I was solo that night. Darian had called in sick, first time in 3 years. My temporary partner was a rookie named Collins, fresh out of the academy, eager, professional, and completely unaware of anything beyond the manual. We were assigned to the Garden District, a different part of town from the French Quarter. Wealthy neighborhood, big houses, quiet streets. The kind of area where the biggest problem is usually a noise complaint about a party. It was around 10 p.m. when the call came in. Solange's voice on the radio, calm and professional as always. Unit 5-3, we have a welfare check requested at 1823 Prytania Street. Neighbor reports not seeing the resident in several days. Mail is piling up. Collins acknowledged the call and we headed over. Prytania Street was lined with massive oak trees, their branches creating a canopy overhead. The houses were antebellum mansions, most of them restored and maintained. Old money, old families. Number 1823 was a 3-story Greek revival. White columns, wide porch, shuttered windows. The front yard was neat, but Collins was right about the mail. The box was overflowing and there was a stack of newspapers in plastic bags sitting on the porch. We rang the bell. No answer. Knocked on the door. Nothing. "Check around back," I said. We walked around the side of the house. The backyard was bigger than my entire apartment, with a garden that probably required a full-time staff to maintain. The back door was locked too. I was about to call it in when Collins pointed at something. "Look, the basement window." There was a small window at ground level and it was open. Just a crack, but definitely open. "Hello?" I called through the window. "NOPD, anyone down there?" No response. But I could smell something. Not strong, but there. That smell that every cop learns to recognize. Death. "We're going in," I said. It took some work, but we managed to get the basement window open wide enough to climb through. Collins went first, dropping down into the darkness. I followed. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floor, exposed pipes, the kind of space that rich people use for storage and forget about. Our flashlights showed boxes stacked against walls, old furniture covered with sheets, the usual accumulation of decades. And in the corner, covered with a tarp, was the source of the smell. I knew what we'd find before I pulled back the tarp. You develop an instinct for these things, but knowing doesn't make it easier. It was an elderly woman, probably in her 70s. She'd been dead for a while, several days at least. There was no sign of violence, no obvious injury. She was dressed in a nightgown and robe like she'd come down here for something and just never made it back up. "Natural causes?" Collins asked. He was trying to sound professional, but I could hear the shake in his voice. Probably his first body. "Looks like it." I said. "But we'll let the coroner make that call. Come on, let's call it in." We climbed back out of the basement and I radioed it in. Within 20 minutes, the whole parade had arrived. Coroner's van, crime scene techs, a detective, the works. The detective was someone I knew. Yvette Marchand worked homicide for 15 years. Sharp as they come. "LaRue," she said, by way of greeting. "What do we have?" I walked her through it. The welfare check, the open window, the body in the basement. "Probably a medical emergency," I said. "Came down to the basement for something, collapsed. Nobody to find her." Marchand nodded, making notes. "Family?" "Don't know yet. We were just responding to the call." She was about to say something else when one of the techs called out from the basement window. "Detective, you need to see this." We all gathered around as the tech climbed out, holding an evidence bag. Inside was a notebook, old and water-damaged. "Found it next to the body," the tech said. "Looks like she was writing in it when she died." Marchand opened the bag carefully and pulled out the notebook. The last entry was dated 4 days ago. The handwriting was shaky, some of the words barely legible. "Can you read it?" I asked. Marchand held it up to her flashlight. "Says, they're here again. The officers, same ones as before. They keep asking me to come with them. I know I should. I've kept them waiting too long. Tonight at 3:11, I'll go. It's time." A chill ran down my spine. Collins looked confused, but Marchand's face had gone pale. "The officers?" Collins said. "What officers?" "Probably confusion," Marchand said, but she didn't sound convinced. "End of life, people hallucinate, see things." But she was looking at me as she said it, and I knew she knew. Somehow, she knew. The coroner arrived and took over. We gave our statements and were told we could leave. As Collins and I walked back to our cruiser, Marchand caught up with me. "LaRue, a word." Collins kept walking. Marchand waited until he was out of earshot. 3:11, she said. "That mean anything to you?" I could have lied, should have lied, but something in her eyes told me she already knew the answer. "Yeah," I said. "It means something." She pulled out her phone, opened a folder. "Look at these." The screen showed a series of police reports, all of them marked as closed, case resolved. But they all had something in common. Each one mentioned an officer seeing or experiencing something strange. Times listed as 03:11, locations scattered across the French Quarter. "I've been collecting these for 2 years, Marchand said, "ever since my partner disappeared." "Disappeared?" "Missing person case, Detective Raymond Thibodeau. You know the name?" I did, not personally, but everyone in the department knew the story. Thibodeau had vanished 5 years ago while investigating a cold case. Just never came home one night. His car was found parked on Chartres Street. No signs of struggle, no explanation. The case was still open. "Solange's brother," I said. Marchand nodded. "She doesn't talk about it. But I worked with Ray. We were partners for 3 years, and the night he vanished, he called me. Said he'd found something. Something about officers going missing over the past century. A pattern. What kind of pattern? He didn't get to explain. The call cut out. I tried calling back, no answer. I drove to his location, but all I found was his car. And this. She showed me another photo, a notebook, different from the one we'd just found, but similar. The last entry read, "The formation. They're all there, waiting. 03:11. I understand now." "You think they're connected?" I asked. "I know they are, and I think you've seen something too. Am I right?" I didn't answer immediately. Couldn't. Because admitting it, saying it out loud, that would make it real. and I'd spent 3 weeks trying to convince myself it wasn't. "The warehouse," I finally said. "By the river." Marchand's eyes widened. "You've been there?" "3 weeks ago. Darian and we got called to check on missing officers. Ended up somewhere else. Somewhere we shouldn't have been." "And you saw them? The formation?" "Yeah." She was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, "Did they try to take you?" "Almost. We got out, but I don't think we're done. I think we just delayed it." Marchand looked back at the house where they were wheeling out the body. Evelyn Broussard lived alone for 20 years, ever since her husband died. He was NOPD too. Worked the night shift in the quarter for 30 years. According to neighbors, she always said she could still see him sometimes, standing in their backyard at night in his uniform. "You think he's part of it?" "I think everyone who goes to that warehouse becomes part of it. And I think they can call to people, draw them in. Maybe it's family, maybe it's something else. But once they have you marked, they don't let go." My radio crackled. Solange's voice. "Unit 5-3, we have a disturbance call on Magazine Street. Are you clear?" I looked at Marchand. She nodded. "Go. Do your job. But Marcus, be careful, especially around 311. I got back in the cruiser with Collins. He was reading through his notes, preparing his report. Clean, simple, straightforward. A welfare check that ended with a natural death. No mysteries. No questions. I envied him that simplicity. We drove to Magazine Street. The disturbance was nothing. A false alarm. Then we got another call and another. Normal police work. But all the while, I was thinking about what Marchand had said. About patterns and formations and people being marked. Around 2 a.m., we stopped for coffee at an all-night diner on St. Charles. Collins went inside while I stayed with the car. The street was quiet, just a few cars passing by. The streetcar tracks gleamed under the lights. That's when I saw him, standing across the street next to a bus stop, wearing an NOPD uniform. Darian. But Darian had called in sick. He was home in bed. I got out of the car. "Darian!" The figure didn't respond, just stood there perfectly still. I started across the street. A car passed, headlights sweeping across the bus stop. When they cleared, the figure was gone. I stood there on the empty sidewalk, heart pounding. Pulled out my phone and called Darian's number. He answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. "Marcus, it's 2 a.m. Where are you?" "What? I'm home, in bed. Where else would I be? You're sick?" "Yeah. Caught something. Why?" I looked back at the empty bus stop. "No reason. Feel better." I hung up. Collins came out of the diner with 2 cups of coffee. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah. Just thought I saw someone I knew." We got back in the car. As we drove away, I checked the rearview mirror. The figure was back at the bus stop, watching us leave. The rest of the shift passed without incident. We dropped the car off at the station at 6 a.m. Collins headed home. I stayed to finish paperwork. The station was quiet at that hour. Just a few people coming and going. I was in the report room when Marchand found me. "I've been going through Raymond's old files," she said. "The ones he was reviewing before he vanished. Found something." She spread a folder on the table. Inside were old reports, some of them going back decades. All of them involved officers reporting strange incidents in the French Quarter. Disappearances, lost time, encounters with figures in uniform. "Look at the dates," Marchand said. I scanned through them. Different months, different years, but they all had something in common. They all happened on the 16th of the month. "The 16th," I said. That's today. And look at this." She pulled out a map of the French Quarter. Red pins marked locations mentioned in the reports. Chartres Street, Royal Street, Decatur, the Warehouse District. But there was a pattern. When you connected the pins, they formed a shape, a path leading from the heart of the quarter down to the river. "It's a route," I said. "A patrol route," Marchand corrected. "The same route that's been walked for over 100 years. And every officer who walks it on the 16th, every officer who's there at 3:11. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. "You're saying it's a cycle. It repeats. Every month, on the 16th, and the officers who are taken, they become part of the mechanism. They help recruit the next ones. Why? I don't know. Raymond was trying to figure that out when he vanished." My phone buzzed. A text from Darian. "Feeling better. Coming in for the night shift." I showed it to Marchand. She frowned. "He's marked too?" "We both are. We saw the formation together." "Then you need to be careful tonight, both of you. Stay away from the quarter. Stay away from that route. And if we can't, if we get assigned there." She didn't have an answer for that. I went home and tried to sleep, but couldn't. Kept thinking about that figure at the bus stop, about the formation in the warehouse, about all those officers, standing at attention, waiting. At 8 p.m. I reported for duty. Darian was already there, looking better. The sickness had passed. "How you feeling?" I asked. "Good. Whatever it was, it's gone." We checked out our equipment, got our assignment from the duty sergeant. "Leroux, Boudreaux, you've got the French Quarter tonight, Royal Street and vicinity." My blood went cold. "Can we get a different route?" The sergeant looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Why? We work the quarter a lot lately. Thought we could switch it up." "Request denied. You know the area, you're good at it. Now get out there." We had no choice. We took the keys to Unit 47 and headed out. The night was warm for December. Heavy clouds overhead, threatening rain but not delivering. The French Quarter was busy, tourists everywhere. Thursday night meant music and drinking and all the usual chaos. We started our patrol on Royal Street. Everything seemed normal. We responded to a few calls, nothing serious. Noise complaints, public intoxication, standard stuff. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was building. Every time I checked my watch, I was calculating. How long until 3:11? What would happen when we reached that time? Around midnight, the streets started to empty. The tourists headed back to their hotels. The bars began to close. That's when the quarter shows its real face. Old, dark, full of secrets. We turned onto Chartres Street, same route as before. Same buildings, same shadows. "You feel it?" Darian asked quietly. "Yeah." "What do we do?" "Our job, stay alert, stay together." But even as I said it, I knew it wouldn't matter. We'd been marked, and the quarter doesn't let go of what it marks. At 1:30 a.m., the radio crackled. Solange's voice, but different somehow. Strained. "Unit 47, we have a report of an officer down. Decatur Street near the French Market." "Which unit?" I asked. "Static. Unknown." "Static. Please respond." We turned onto Decatur, moving fast. The French Market was closed, the stalls shuttered. Streetlights cast long shadows between the columns. We found a cruiser parked near the market entrance. Lights off, engine running. Nobody inside. "Unit 47, we're on scene," I radioed. "No sign of the officer. Vehicle is empty." No response. Just static. Darian and I got out. Checked the cruiser. The computer was still logged in, showing a routine patrol status. No emergency, no pursuit, just empty. "You hear that?" Darian said. I listened. From somewhere in the market, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming closer. We moved toward the sound, hands on our weapons. The market stalls loomed on either side, shadows between them deeper than they should be. A figure emerged from the darkness. Uniformed officer walking toward us with that same strange gait I'd seen before. Too smooth, too measured. "Stop right there," I called out. "Identify yourself." The figure stopped. In the dim light, I could see their face. Officer Raymond Thibodeau. Marchand's old partner. The detective who'd vanished 5 years ago. He looked exactly as he did in the photos I'd seen. Hadn't aged a day. Still wearing his detective shield. "Raymond?" I said. He didn't respond. Just raised one arm and pointed back the way he'd come, toward the river. More figures emerged from the market, dozens of them, all in uniform, all walking in formation. I recognized some of them from the reports Marchand had shown me. Officers who'd gone missing over the years. All of them here now, all of them part of this. "We need to go," Darian said. "Now." But when we turned back toward our cruiser, there were more of them. Behind us, beside us, forming a circle, not threatening, not advancing, just standing there, waiting. I checked my watch, 3:09 a.m. 2 minutes. "The warehouse," I said. "That's where they're taking us. Then we don't go." I don't think we have a choice. The formation began to move, all of them in perfect synchronization, walking toward the river, creating a path between them, an invitation, or a command. We stood our ground. 1 minute. The air got heavier, that river smell stronger. I could hear water lapping against pilings, even though we were blocks from the waterfront. 30 seconds. My body cam activated on its own. The screen showed the timestamp, 03:11 a.m. "Marcus," Darian said, "whatever happens, I know." The formation stopped. Every officer turned to face us, and in that moment I understood what Raymond had meant in his last note. I understood it all. They weren't taking us. They were showing us what we'd become part of, what we'd always been part of, from the moment we put on the uniform and walked these streets. The quarter takes care of its own. It always has. Every officer who's ever served here, everyone who's ever walked these old streets, they're all still here, still on patrol, still watching over the city in the only way they know how. We're not prisoners, we're guardians. The clock struck 3:11, and I heard them, all of them, 100 years of voices, overlapping, echoing, speaking in unison. "Welcome to the eternal patrol." The world shifted. The market, the street, the buildings, all of it shimmered like a heat mirage. Then it solidified again, but different, clearer. I could see layers now, the modern city overlapping with older versions, the quarter as it was 100 years ago, 50 years ago, yesterday, and walking through all of it, throughout all of time, the formation. Officers in every era of uniform, from every decade of the department's history, all of them on patrol, all of them watching. Darian saw it too. I could tell from his face. "We're not gone," he said, wonder in his voice. "We're just somewhere else." The formation began to march. Not away from us this time, but past us, each officer nodding as they went by. Acknowledgement. Recognition. Welcome. Raymond stopped in front of us. Up close, I could see that he wasn't quite solid. None of them were. They existed in that same shimmering state as everything else, between real and not real. between here and somewhere else. You have a choice, he said. His voice sounded like it was coming from far away. You can join us now. Take your place in the formation. Walk the eternal patrol. Or, I asked, or you can go back, continue your regular duty. But knowing that one day when your time comes, you'll end up here anyway. We all do. Every officer who serves the quarter, they all come home eventually. I looked at Darian. He was thinking the same thing I was. We go back, I said. We're not ready yet. Raymond nodded. Then go. But remember what you've seen. Remember what awaits. And when you're ready, when your time is done, the formation will be here. We'll all be here. He stepped aside. The formation opened up, creating a path. Not toward the river this time, but back toward the quarter. Toward the living world. We walked, past officers from every era, every generation. Some of them I recognized, most I didn't, but they all nodded as we passed. All acknowledged us as fellow officers. At the end of the path, reality shimmered again. The modern world returned. The French market as it was, empty and closed. Our cruiser where we'd left it. My watch showed 3:12 a.m. 1 minute had passed. Darian and I stood there for a moment, not speaking. Then he keyed the radio. Unit 47 to dispatch. False alarm on the officer down call. Resuming patrol. Solange's voice came back, normal again. Copy that, 47. We got back in the cruiser and drove. Neither of us spoke about what we'd seen. What would be the point? But as we turned onto Royal Street, I saw them. Figures in the shadows, in the doorways, on the balconies. Officers in old uniforms, walking their eternal patrols. Keeping watch over the quarter the same way they had for 100 years. And I understood. This was the truth that every long-time officer in the quarter knew, but never spoke about. The unwritten rule, the hidden reality. We don't just serve the city, we become part of it. Our service doesn't end with retirement or death. It continues in ways we never expected. The rest of the shift was quiet. We finished our patrol and returned to the station at 6 a.m. Everything normal, everything routine. Marchand was waiting for us. She took one look at our faces and knew. You saw him, she said. Raymond. Yeah, I said. He's still on patrol. She smiled, but it was sad. I know. I've seen him too. Sometimes, late at night, walking his old route. He looks happy. Are you Mark too? We all are. Everyone who works the quarter long enough. We're all part of it now. She was right. I could feel it. That connection to the old streets, to the ancient buildings, to all the officers who'd walked this beat before me. It was like a second heartbeat, steady and constant. I went home and slept for 12 hours. When I woke up, I checked my body cam. The hidden folder was back. Inside was new footage from last night. Everything we'd seen, everything we'd experienced, all of it recorded. But at the end of the video there was something new, the formation, marching in the distance. And in the front row, 2 empty spaces, side by side, waiting for the day when Darian and I would take our places. I didn't delete the footage this time, just closed the folder and put the camera away, because Marchand was right. We're all part of it now. And one day, when our time comes, we'll join the Eternal Patrol. But not yet. Not tonight. Tonight, I've got a shift to work, streets to patrol, people to protect, and somewhere in the shadows of the French Quarter, 100 years of officers are doing the same thing. All of us together, all of us connected. The thin blue line that never breaks, never ends. That's the truth of the quarter. That's the secret we all carry. And at 3:11 every morning, when the veil is thinnest, we can see each other. The living and the not quite dead. All of us on duty. All of us serving. Forever. It's been 6 months since that night at the French market. 6 months of normal shifts, routine calls, regular police work. But nothing feels completely normal anymore. I see them now, the formation. Not all the time, just glimpses. A figure in an old uniform standing on a corner at 3 a.m. Footsteps in an empty alley that match my own. Shadows that walk with the same cadence as a patrol officer. Darian sees them too. We don't talk about it much, but sometimes, when we're driving through the quarter late at night, he'll glance at something and I'll know he's seen one of them. One of us. The eternal patrol. The department thinks we're solid officers. Good solve rate, minimal complaints, always professional. They have no idea that we're walking between worlds, that we've seen what waits at the end of every cop's career in the French Quarter. Marchand left the force last month. Took early retirement. Said she wanted to spend more time with family, but I knew the truth. She'd seen Raymond too many times. The pull was getting stronger. Better to leave while she still could, while she still had a choice. The day she turned in her badge, she pulled me aside. "You're young enough that you could transfer," she said. "Get out of the quarter, work another district. Maybe that would break the connection." "You think so?" "No, but it might delay it, give you more time." I didn't transfer, neither did Darian. We're quarter cops now, and that's all there is to it. The old streets have claimed us. It was a Friday night in June when things escalated. Humidity was oppressive, the kind that makes your uniform stick to your skin and makes every breath feel like you're drowning. The forecast called for thunderstorms, but they hadn't materialized yet. Just the promise of rain, hanging in the air like a threat. We were assigned to the usual route, Royal Street and vicinity. By now, the duty sergeants knew better than to try giving us anywhere else. We knew the quarter. The quarter knew us. Around 11 p.m., we got a call from Solange. There was tension in her voice. Not unusual, given what she'd been through with her brother, but this was different. "Unit 47, we need you to respond to 728 Toulouse Street, apartment 3B. Neighbor reports sounds of a struggle." "Copy that," I said. En route. Toulouse Street was in the heart of the quarter. Old buildings, most of them converted into apartments. The kind of place where the walls are so thin you can hear your neighbors' conversations, which is probably how this call came in. Number 728 was a 3-story Creole townhouse. Cracked stucco, rusted balconies, the whole structure leaning slightly to one side like it had been doing for 200 years. We could hear music coming from somewhere inside. Jazz, naturally. A clarinet playing something slow and mournful. We climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. The hallway was narrow, lit by a single flickering bulb. Apartment 3B was at the end. I knocked. "NOPD, open up." No response, but I could hear something inside. Movement. Then a voice, muffled. "Help, please." Darian and I exchanged a look. I tried the knob, locked. "Stand back from the door," I called out. Then to Darian, "We're going in." It took 2 kicks to break the lock. The door swung open and we entered, hands on our weapons. The apartment was small. One room serving as living room and bedroom, a tiny kitchen to the side, bathroom visible through another door. The furniture was minimal and old, but what caught my attention was the smell. Not death this time, but something else, something chemical, sweet and cloying. A woman was sitting in a chair in the center of the room. Mid-30s, dark hair, wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Her hands were tied to the chair arms with zip ties, duct tape over her mouth. But here's the thing that made my skin crawl. She was perfectly still, not struggling, not trying to communicate, just sitting there, staring at us with wide eyes. "Ma'am, we're police," I said, moving toward her. "We're going to get you out of here." As I got closer, I saw why she wasn't moving. There was someone standing behind the chair. A man, also mid-30s, wearing an NOPD uniform. An old uniform, the kind they wore maybe 30 years ago. And he was shimmering, translucent, not quite solid. One of them. One of the formation. "Marcus," Darian said quietly. He'd seen it too. The figure raised a finger to his lips, a gesture for silence. Then he pointed toward the bathroom door. I understood there was someone else in the apartment, someone real, someone dangerous. I drew my weapon, moved toward the bathroom. Darian covered the woman, though the translucent officer was still standing behind her chair, watching. The bathroom door was closed. I could hear water running, someone humming along with the jazz music still playing. "Police!" I shouted. "Come out with your hands up." The humming stopped. The water kept running. Then the door opened and a man stepped out. Civilian clothes, early 40s, completely calm, like he'd been expecting us. "Evening, officers," he said pleasantly. "Something I can help you with?" "Get down on the ground," I said. "Hands behind your head." "Now, is that really necessary? This is my apartment. That's my girlfriend. We were just having a little disagreement." "Your girlfriend is tied to a chair. Like I said, a disagreement. But we've worked it out, haven't we, baby?" He looked at the woman. She didn't respond, couldn't respond with the tape over her mouth. But I saw the fear in her eyes. This wasn't a domestic dispute. This was something worse. "Ground, now," he sighed. All right. No need to get excited." He started to lower himself down, hands moving toward his head. Then, in one smooth motion, he pivoted and lunged at me. I didn't have time to think. Training took over. I sidestepped, brought my weapon up, prepared to fire. But I didn't need to. The translucent officer, the one who'd been standing behind the woman's chair, moved. Faster than anything I'd ever seen. One moment he was there, the next he was between me and the attacker. The man collided with the ghost officer and screamed. Not pain, but terror. Pure, absolute terror. He fell back, scrambling away, eyes wide. "No!" he shouted. "No! Get away from me!" But the ghost officer didn't move, just stood there, blocking the path between the man and us, a guardian, a protector. Darian had his weapon drawn now too. "Stay down! Don't move!" The man was curled up on the floor, whimpering. "Make it go away. Please, make it go away." I moved to the woman and cut the zip ties with my knife. Gently removed the duct tape from her mouth. She gasped, taking in deep breaths. "You're safe now," I said. "What's your name?" "Kelly," she managed. "Kelly DuPont. He took me 3 days ago. Wouldn't let me leave." "You know him?" "We met online. First date. He seemed nice, but then we came back here and he changed." Darian was cuffing the man, reading him his rights. The man wasn't fighting anymore. Kept his eyes closed, like if he didn't look, the ghost officer wouldn't be there. I looked at the translucent figure. He was still standing there, but he was looking at me now. And I recognized him. Not from the formation, but from somewhere else. An old photograph in the station. A memorial wall. Officer Thomas Mercier. Killed in the line of duty in 1994. Responding to a domestic violence call on this very street. Shot by an abusive husband while protecting the victim. He'd been protecting people even then. And apparently, he still was. "Thank you," I said quietly. The ghost officer nodded. Then he faded. shimmering out of existence like he'd never been there at all. Kelly was crying now, relief and trauma mixing together. "Did you see him?" she asked. "The officer? The one who—" "Yes," I said. "We saw him." Darian called for backup and an ambulance. Kelly was checked out by EMTs while we processed the scene. The man, whose name was Brian Kelso, was taken into custody. Kelly's statement, combined with the evidence in the apartment, would put him away for a long time. After everything was wrapped up and we were back in our cruiser, Darian finally spoke. "They're protecting people. The formation, they're not just watching, they're active. Looks like it. So it's not a punishment. What they do, what they become. It's still service." I thought about that. About all those officers walking their eternal patrols, watching over the quarter even after death, intervening when they could, protecting those who needed it. "Yeah," I said, "it's still service." We drove through the quarter, and I saw them everywhere now. Not threatening, not ominous. Just there, doing their jobs. Officer on the corner of Royal and St. Peter, keeping an eye on late-night tourists. Another one walking down an alley behind Bourbon Street, making sure no one was getting mugged in the shadows. The eternal patrol, still on duty, still serving. When we got back to the station for our meal break, there was a package waiting for me at the desk. No return address, just my name. Inside was a folder. Old police reports, copies of documents going back decades, and a note in handwriting I recognized as Marchand's. "Marcus, I found these in Raymond's personal effects. Thought you should have them. The truth about the formation, what it really is." YM. I opened the folder, started reading. The first document was a report from 1891. An officer, Jean-Baptiste Fontaine, describing an incident where he'd been assisted by a spectral figure in police attire while apprehending a violent criminal. The report had been filed, then stamped, disregarded, fatigue, stress, by a supervisor. More reports followed. 1902, 1910, 1933, 1945. All of them describing similar incidents. Officers seeing their predecessors. Dead cops still walking the beat. All of them dismissed as hallucinations or stress. But the reports kept coming, and the officers who filed them, the ones who saw the formation, they all had something in common. They all ended their careers in the quarter. All of them stayed until retirement or death. None of them ever transferred out. The last document in the folder was different. A handwritten letter dated 1878. Written by one of the first police commissioners of New Orleans. To whom it may concern, this city was built on the dead, the quarter most of all. Yellow fever, cholera, violence, thousands dead in these streets over the centuries. But the city endures. It survives. And I have come to believe it survives because the dead protect it. Those who served in life continue to serve after death. This is not a curse. It is a covenant. The quarter takes care of its own, always has, always will. Those who walk these streets in uniform, they become part of something larger, something eternal. I have seen them myself, walking their patrols long after their bodies were laid to rest. And I am no longer afraid, for I know that when my time comes I will join them, we all will. Every officer who truly serves this city, they are never really gone. They're just on a different shift. Commissioner Antoine LaRoche. I closed the folder, looked at Darian. "They knew," I said, "from the very beginning. This isn't new. It's been happening for over 100 years. And they kept it quiet. Would you believe it if someone told you, before we saw it ourselves?" He shook his head, no. I put the folder away. We still had the rest of our shift to finish. As we drove back into the quarter, I felt different. Not scared anymore, not dreading what would eventually come, because I understood now. This wasn't a horror story, it was a tradition. A legacy. Every officer who serves the quarter were all part of this long chain of service that stretches back over a century. And when our time comes, we don't stop serving. We just move to a different level of protection. The formation isn't a punishment, it's a promotion. We finished our shift without incident. Watched the sun come up over the Mississippi, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Another night protected, another shift complete. And somewhere in the shadows, I knew the other shift was ending too. The eternal patrol was fading with the dawn, waiting for night to fall again. But they'd be back. They're always back, because the quarter takes care of its own, and we take care of the quarter, forever. The summer heat broke in September, but not by much. New Orleans doesn't really do fall. It just goes from oppressive to slightly less oppressive, with humidity that never quite leaves. I'd been on the force for 7.5 years now. Darien had just passed 10. We were veterans of the quarter, known faces to the locals, respected by the other officers. On paper, we were model cops, but we lived with a secret. Every night, we walked between worlds. Every shift, we saw the formation, and every day, we knew we were getting closer to joining them. It was a Tuesday when everything came to a head. September 16th. That date again, like it always was. The cycle repeating. We reported for duty at 10 p.m. The quarter was busy, early fall bringing tourists who couldn't handle the summer heat. Music spilled from every bar, competing melodies overlapping into something that was uniquely New Orleans. Solange gave us our assignment. Royal Street and vicinity, our home territory. We'd walked these streets so many times we could do it blindfolded. But tonight felt different. There was electricity in the air, not from any approaching storm, but from something else. Something building. "You feel it?" Darien asked as we started our patrol. "Yeah." "Think tonight's the night?" I didn't answer. Didn't need to. We both knew. The first hour was routine. Noise complaints, public intoxication, the usual. But as midnight approached, things got quieter. Tourists started heading back to hotels. The locals who knew better were already gone. By 1 a.m., the streets were nearly empty. And that's when I started seeing them. Not just glimpses this time, but clear as day. Officers in uniforms from every era, walking their patrols alongside us. They weren't hiding anymore. They wanted to be seen. At 2 a.m., our radios went dead. No static, no crackling, just complete silence. We were cut off from dispatch, from other units, from everything. "Here we go," Darien said quietly. We kept walking. Down Royal, onto Chartres, through the narrow streets and alleys we knew so well. And everywhere we went, the formation was there, growing larger. More officers joining with every block. I recognized faces now. Fisher, who'd supposedly gone missing but was right there walking 10 feet away. Dalton, his old partner. Raymond Thibodeau, giving us a nod as we passed. Officer Mercier, who'd helped us save Kelly DuPont. Dozens of others. And at 3 a.m., we found ourselves at the warehouse. We didn't plan to go there. Our feet just carried us, following a route we'd walked before in that other space between real and not real. The warehouse doors were open. Light spilled out, bright and warm. Inside, the formation was assembled. Not just dozens now, but hundreds. Every officer who'd ever served the quarter, all of them standing at attention. And at the front, 2 empty spaces, side by side, waiting for us. "We don't have to do this," I said. "We can turn around, go back." "Can we?" Darian asked. Or are we just delaying the inevitable? I looked at the formation, at all those officers standing ready. They weren't threatening. They were inviting, welcoming us home. Then I saw something that made my decision for me. At the back of the formation, 2 new figures had appeared. An elderly couple, both in civilian clothes. The man was wearing an old NOPD uniform jacket over regular clothes. The woman was holding his hand, my grandfather. He'd been NOPD for 30 years, worked the quarter his whole career, died when I was 12. And next to him was my grandmother who'd passed a year later. He saw me looking and smiled, raised his hand in a small wave. I'd become a cop because of him, because of the stories he told, the pride he had in the job. And here he was, still serving, still protecting the city he loved. I'm going in, I said to Darian. Yeah, he said. Me too. We walked through the warehouse doors. The moment we crossed the threshold, something changed. The world became clearer, sharper. I could see everything now, not just the present, but the past. The quarter, as it was in every era, all of them existing simultaneously. The formation parted, creating a path. At the end stood a figure in an ancient uniform, the kind they wore when the force was first established. Commissioner LaRoche, the man who'd written that letter in 1878. Officers LaRue and Boudreau, he said. His voice echoed with authority. You've been called to join the Eternal Patrol. Do you accept this duty? I looked at Darian. He nodded. We do, I said. Then take your places. We walked to the front of the formation, to those 2 empty spaces. We stood at attention, and the moment we did, I felt it. The connection. Not just to every officer here, but to every officer who'd ever served. To the city itself. We were part of something larger now. Something eternal. The formation began to march. Out of the warehouse into the quarter, and we marched with them. But as we moved, I realized something. We weren't ghosts. We weren't dead. We were something in between. We could still interact with the living world when needed, still protect, still serve. This wasn't an ending, it was a transformation. We marched through the quarter and I could see it all now. Every crime, every danger, every person in need. The formation spread out, each officer going to where they were needed. Some visible, some not. All of us working in concert to keep the city safe. I saw a woman being followed down a dark street. I appeared beside her, just solid enough to be seen. The man following her took one look at me and ran. I faded back into the in-between. Darian stopped a robbery on Decatur Street. The thieves saw him materialize out of nowhere and dropped their stolen goods, fleeing in terror. All through the night, we worked. The Eternal Patrol, doing what we'd always done, just from a different side of reality. And at 6 a.m., when the sun began to rise, we returned to the warehouse. The formation reassembled. Commissioner LaRoche stood before us. Well done, he said. Your first patrol as Guardians is complete. You may rest now, or you may continue. The choice is yours. I thought about it, about returning to normal duty, about going back to the life I'd had. But that life felt distant now, like something from another world. This was where I belonged. This was my true calling. I'll continue, I said. As will I, Darian added. LaRoche smiled. Then you are truly one of us now. Welcome to the Eternal Patrol. Welcome home. The formation dispersed, officers fading into the morning light. Some would return to the in-between, resting until night fell again. Others would remain active, invisible guardians watching over the city in daylight. Darian and I walked back into the quarter. We were still visible, still solid enough to be seen. But we knew we could fade if we wanted to, could slip into that space between worlds. On Royal Street we encountered a patrol car, our old unit 47. 2 new officers inside, young and eager. They were just starting their shift. They drove past us without a glance, couldn't see us, or maybe they just saw 2 cops walking the beat and didn't think anything of it. We kept walking. Days passed, weeks. I don't know how long exactly. Time moves differently when you're part of the eternal patrol. Sometimes a night feels like minutes. Sometimes an hour stretches into infinity. We helped people, stopped crimes, appeared when needed, faded when our work was done. The perfect patrol officers, never sleeping, never resting, always on duty. And slowly, I realized this was better than anything I'd had before. No paperwork, no bureaucracy, no politics. Just the job in its purest form. Protecting and serving. One night, I saw Marchand. She was walking through the quarter not as a cop anymore, just a civilian. But she saw me. I could tell from the way her eyes focused on my position even though I was mostly faded. I materialized in front of her. "Detective." She smiled. "Marcus, so you finally joined them?" "Yeah. Wasn't so bad, actually. Raymond's been watching over me. I see him sometimes, always there when I need him. He's a good cop, they all are. Will I, when my time comes, if you want to, if you choose to serve? The quarter takes care of its own, remember?" She nodded. "I remember." We talked for a while, 2 old colleagues catching up. Then I faded again back to the patrol. The months turned to years, or maybe just days. Like I said, time is different now. I saw the city change. New buildings rising, old ones being restored. Hurricanes coming and going. The quarter enduring like it always does. And through it all, the eternal patrol marched on, protecting, serving, watching over our city. New officers joined the formation. Darian's grandfather appeared one night, proud to serve alongside his grandson. Others I'd known from the force, passing from life to this new duty. And sometimes, just sometimes, I caught glimpses of the living officers. The new generation walking the same streets we'd walked, facing the same dangers, learning the same lessons. They couldn't see us. Not yet, not until their time came, but we were there. Always there, watching their backs, stepping in when needed. The invisible thin blue line that never breaks. One night, I was walking down Chartres Street when I saw them. 2 young officers, fresh-faced and nervous, responding to a call about missing persons. They found an abandoned cruiser, checked the alley nearby. One of them picked up a radio lying in a puddle. I smiled, the cycle beginning again. I watched them from the shadows as they experienced what Darian and I had experienced. The lost time, the disappearing cars, the formation revealing itself. And when they made it back, confused and shaken but alive, I knew they'd been marked. One day, they'd join us. But not yet. They had years of service ahead of them first. Years of protecting the quarter, of learning its secrets, of becoming part of its story. Just like we had. I faded back into the in-between and continued my patrol. Down Royal Street, across Jackson Square, along the riverfront. The route I'd walked 1,000 times before, and would walk 1,000 times again. Because this is what we do. This is what we are. The eternal patrol, guardians of the quarter, protectors of the city, forever. And when night falls and the shadows grow long, when 311 comes around and the veil is thinnest, you might see us. A figure in a police uniform, standing on a corner that shouldn't have anyone there. Footsteps behind you on an empty street, matching your pace. A presence in the darkness, watching, protecting. Don't be afraid, it's just us, still on duty, still serving, still watching over our city, our quarter, our home, now and forever. The eternal patrol marches on, and we march with it. There's something about shotgun houses that gets under your skin if you live in New Orleans long enough. They're everywhere in this city. These long, narrow structures that run straight back from the street. You can stand at the front door and see clear through to the back, like looking down a tunnel. They say you could fire a shotgun through the front and the pellets would fly straight out the back without hitting a wall. That's where the name comes from. I'm Elias Fontenot, been with NOPD for 9 years. I grew up in Treme, in one of these shotgun houses. My grandmother's place, built sometime in the 1890s. 3 rooms in a row, high ceilings, creaky floors. I knew every sound that house made, every groan of the wood, every rattle of the windows when the wind picked up. That's why I noticed when something was wrong with the house on North Rampart Street. It was early October, still warm, but the worst of the summer heat had broken. I was working day shift that week, partnered with Caleb Baptiste. Caleb was senior to me by 15 years, one of those cops who'd seen everything and wasn't impressed by much anymore. Solid, dependable, the kind of partner you want when things get complicated. We were cruising through Trame around 2 p.m. when dispatch called us. Unit 6-4, we have a complaint about a property on North Rampart. Number 1247. Caller says there are unusual noises coming from inside. Property is supposed to be vacant. I picked up the radio. Copy that. We're 3 blocks away, en route. The address was familiar. I'd driven past that house 100 times. It was one of those shotgun houses that had been abandoned after Katrina and never reclaimed. The city had it sealed up, boarded windows, padlocked doors. There was a condemned notice posted on the front. Faded now, but still legible. We pulled up outside. The house looked exactly as it had for the past decade. Weathered wood siding, paint peeling in long strips, roof sagging slightly. The windows were covered with sheets of plywood screwed tight. The front door had a heavy chain and padlock across it. "Doesn't look like anyone's been here," Caleb said, getting out of the cruiser. We walked up to the porch. The boards creaked under our weight, that particular sound old wood makes when it's been rotting from the inside. I tested the chain on the door. Secure. The padlock was rusty but intact. Maybe the neighbor heard something from next door, I suggested. Sound travels in these old places. Caleb was already walking around the side of the house. I followed. The narrow space between buildings was overgrown with weeds, broken bottles and trash scattered everywhere. The side windows were boarded up same as the front. But when we got to the back, I saw something that made me stop. The back door was sealed like the front. Chain, padlock, everything intact. But on the small concrete stoop, there were muddy footprints, fresh ones, leading right up to the door. "Caleb," I said, pointing. He knelt down, examining them. "These are recent, last few hours maybe. Size 11, 12, adult male probably." We looked at the door. The chain was definitely locked. Nobody could have gone through without breaking it. Yet the footprints led right up to the door and stopped. There were no prints leading away. "Check the windows," Caleb said. We circled the entire house. Every window was sealed. Every entry point was locked down tight. But those footprints at the back door were undeniable. Someone had walked up to that house, and they hadn't walked away. "We need to get inside," I said. Caleb called it in. Within 15 minutes, we had authorization to breach the property and investigate. The city sent someone over with bolt cutters for the chains. While we waited, I studied the house. It was a typical shotgun, probably built around the same time as my grandmother's. Front room, middle room, back room, all in a straight line. Kitchen would be in the back. Bathroom probably added on later. Maybe 800 square feet total, if that. The windows stared back at me like dead eyes, plywood covering any view inside. But I had the strangest feeling that something was looking back, watching us from behind that wood. The city worker arrived with the bolt cutters, made quick work of the padlock on the front door. The chain fell away with a rattle that seemed too loud in the quiet afternoon. "You want me to wait?" the worker asked. "We're good," Caleb said. "Thanks." The worker left. Caleb and I stood on the porch looking at the door. It was just a door, old and weathered, but neither of us was in a hurry to open it. "Ready?" Caleb finally said. "Yeah." He pushed the door. It swung inward with a long creak, hinges protesting. The smell hit us immediately. Not death, not rot, just old air. Stale and thick, like opening a tomb that had been sealed for years. We stepped inside. The front room was empty. Completely empty. No furniture, no debris, nothing. Just bare wood floors and walls with remnants of old wallpaper peeling off. The light coming through cracks in the boarded windows created thin bars of illumination across the floor. But the temperature was wrong. Outside it was maybe 80 degrees, normal for October in New Orleans. Inside, it had to be 90 or higher. The air was thick and hot, pressing down on us like a weight. "No AC, no heat," Caleb said. "Where's this warmth coming from?" I didn't have an answer. We moved into the middle room, same as the front. Empty, hot, old. The shotgun layout meant we could see straight through to the back room from where we stood. Also empty. We checked everything. The floors for loose boards, the walls for hidden spaces, nothing. The house was completely vacant and had been for years. The dust on the floor was undisturbed except for our own footprints. "Nobody's been in here," Caleb said. "Not recently, anyway." "Then how do you explain the footprints outside?" He didn't have an answer for that. We went to the back door. From inside, we could see the chain and padlock were intact. Nobody had opened this door. Yet those muddy footprints on the back stoop led right to it. "Maybe someone stood there and then backed away," Caleb suggested. "Walked backwards in their own prints." It was possible, unlikely, but possible. We were about to leave when I noticed something. In the back room, which would have been the kitchen, there was a small table pushed against the wall. I hadn't seen it before because it was in shadow, but now a shift in the light made it visible. And on that table were papers. I walked over, 2 documents side by side. Both official NOPD incident reports. "Caleb, look at this." He came over. We stared at the reports. The first one was dated September 14th, 2005, just after Katrina. An incident report about looting at this address. Officers had responded, found the house already abandoned, water damage throughout. They'd secured it and moved on. The reporting officer was someone named J. Marchetti. I didn't recognize the name. The second report was dated October 8th, 2025, 3 days from now. I picked it up carefully. The paper felt fresh, not old. The ink was dark and clear. It was an incident report for this exact address. Unusual activity reported. Property breach. Officers Fontenot and Baptiste investigating. My name. Caleb's name. "This is dated 3 days from now," I said quietly. Caleb took the report from me, studied it. "This is a copy of our report form. Current version, right year, right district designation. But we haven't written this yet. No, we haven't." We stood there in that hot, empty room, holding a report from the future. Outside, I could hear traffic on Rampart Street. Normal city sounds. Inside, just our breathing and the creaking of old wood. "This doesn't make sense," Caleb said. I read through the report more carefully. It described our entry into the house, finding it empty and sealed. Then there was a paragraph about discovering the reports on the table. The one from 2005 and this one, the one I was holding. A loop of documentation, each report referencing the other. At the bottom, in the section for follow-up action required, someone had written, "Property to remain sealed. No further investigation recommended." The handwriting looked like mine, but I hadn't written it. "We need to bag this as evidence," Caleb said. "Evidence of what?" "I don't know, but we're taking it." We photographed everything. The empty rooms, the table, the reports. Then we carefully placed both documents in evidence bags. As we did, I noticed something else. There was a thin layer of dust on the table, but not under the reports like they'd been placed there recently. We left the house. Caleb refastened the chain and padlock as best he could, though it had been cut. We'd need the city to come back and properly secure it again. As we walked back to our cruiser, I looked back at the house, and I could swear I saw movement in one of the cracks between the plywood boards. Just a shift in the darkness behind the wood, like someone moving away from the window. "Did you see that?" I asked. "See what?" "In the window. I thought I saw, but there was nothing there now. Just the sealed house, quiet and still in the afternoon sun." We drove back to the station. Neither of us spoke much. What was there to say? We'd found impossible documents in an impossible situation, and neither of us knew what to make of it. At the station, we logged the evidence and started writing our report. The real one, dated today. And as I wrote, I kept thinking about that other report. The one from 3 days in the future, describing exactly what we were doing now. I got to the part about the documents we'd found. Described the first report from 2005. Then started describing the second one from 2025. My pen stopped. I couldn't write it. Couldn't document that we'd found a report from the future. It sounded insane. Caleb was having the same problem. "How do we write this up? Truthfully?" "You want to tell the department we found a time-traveling police report." He had a point. But lying in an official report was career suicide. We compromised. Wrote that we'd found 2 incident reports, one from 2005 and one recent, both regarding the property. Didn't mention the future date, just noted the reports as evidence and recommended the property remain sealed. It felt like cheating, like we were avoiding the real issue. But what else could we do? We filed the report and went back to our regular patrol. The rest of the shift was normal. Traffic stops, a shoplifting call, a domestic disturbance that turned out to be a loud TV, regular police work. But I couldn't stop thinking about that house, about the footprints that led to a sealed door, about the heat inside when it should have been cool, about those reports on that dusty table. After shift, I went to the records department. Asked to see any old reports for 1247 North Rampart Street. The clerk pulled up the address in the system. "We've got a few things. Property damage reports from Katrina, couple of trespassing calls before it got sealed, not much. What about from 2005? September specifically. Officer J. Marchetti." She typed for a moment. "Here, looting investigation, September 14th, 2005. Want a copy?" "Please." She printed it out. I read it carefully. It was identical to the one we'd found in the house. Every word, every detail. The original report, filed 20 years ago. "Can you look up Officer Marchetti for me?" I asked. "First initial J?" More typing. Joseph Marchetti joined the force in '98, worked through Katrina, died in 2006. How? Doesn't say. Just shows him as deceased, December 2006. I thanked her and left. Sat in my car in the parking lot thinking. An officer who'd been in that house in 2005 had died a year later. We'd found his report in the house, along with one that shouldn't exist yet. And now we'd been in that house too. I should have gone home. Should have put it out of my mind. But instead, I drove back to North Rampart Street. It was evening now, the sun setting. Long shadows stretched across the street. The shotgun house sat quiet among its neighbors. Most of the other houses on the block were occupied, lights on, signs of life. But 1247 was dark and silent. I parked across the street and watched. I don't know what I was looking for. Some sign, some explanation. 20 minutes passed. The street got darker as the sun disappeared. Streetlights flickered on. Then I saw it. A light in the house. Not bright, just a faint glow. Coming from the front room, visible through a crack in the boarded window. I got out of my car. Crossed the street. The light was definitely there, flickering slightly like candlelight. The front door was still chained. I checked the sides, the back. Everything sealed, but that light was real. I called Caleb. "You need to see this." "See what?" "The house on Rampart. There's a light inside." "That's impossible. We sealed it ourselves." "I'm looking at it right now. Can you come?" 20 minutes later, Caleb pulled up. Together, we stood on the sidewalk looking at that faint glow behind the plywood. "Could be reflection," Caleb said. "Headlights, streetlights." But it wasn't. The glow was steady, coming from inside the house. And as we watched, it moved. From the front room to the middle room, then to the back. "Someone's in there," I said. We approached the door. The chain was intact. We went around back. Same thing. Everything locked up tight. The light moved back to the front room. We could see it clearly now through the crack in the boards. It was definitely coming from inside. Caleb called it in. More officers arrived. We breached the property again, cutting the chain. This time, when we opened the door, the smell was different. Not just stale air. Something else. Like ozone after a lightning strike. The front room was empty. No light, no candle, nothing that could have caused that glow we'd seen. We checked every room. All empty, all dark. But the temperature was even higher than before. Had to be pushing 100 degrees inside. One of the other officers started sweating immediately. "Why is it so hot?" he asked. Nobody had an answer. We searched the house top to bottom. Nothing. No sign anyone had been inside. No source for the light we'd all seen. The table in the back room was still there. But the reports we'd bagged as evidence were gone. Of course they were. We'd taken them. But lying on the table in exactly the same positions were 2 new copies of the same reports. "This isn't possible," Caleb said. But it was happening. We photographed them, bagged them again, and when we left and sealed the house once more, I knew we'd be back. This wasn't over. 3 days. That's what the report from the future had said. October 8th, 3 days from now. I wondered what would happen when we reached that date. Would we write the report we'd already found? Would the loop close? Or would something else happen? Something worse. I drove home that night and couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about that light moving through the empty rooms. About the heat that shouldn't be there. About those footprints leading to a sealed door. And about Officer Marchetti, who'd gone into that house in 2005 and died a year later. We'd been in that house twice now. How much time did that buy us? The next day, I did more research. Looked into the history of 1247 North Rampart Street. Property records, old news articles, anything I could find. The house was built in 1894, had gone through various owners over the decades. Nothing remarkable until the 1970s, when a family named Doucet lived there. Father, mother, 2 kids. In December 1977, the father, Marcel Doucet, disappeared. Just vanished one night. Police investigated, found no sign of foul play. The family moved out a few months later. Then in 1983, a single woman bought the house, lived there alone for 5 years. In 1988, she also disappeared. Car found parked outside, purse and keys inside the house, no sign of the owner. Case never solved. After that, the house changed hands a few times. Nobody stayed long. Always moved out after a few months, sometimes weeks. Then Katrina hit, flooding the area. The house was damaged, condemned, sealed up, and since then, nothing. Just an abandoned shotgun house slowly rotting away. Except it wasn't quite abandoned. Something was still there. Something that left footprints and created light and heat in empty rooms. I showed my research to Caleb. We sat in the break room at the station, going through the old reports and articles. 2 disappearances, he said. Both people who lived in that house. And now Marchetti. He went in there and died a year later. You think the house is connected? I don't know. But there's a pattern. People go in, people disappear or die. We went in. Yeah, we did. We sat there in silence. Outside, the station was busy with the usual activity. Inside that break room, we were contemplating something we couldn't quite name. Maybe we're overthinking this, Caleb finally said. Maybe it's all coincidence. Old house, weird circumstances, our minds making connections that aren't there. Maybe. But neither of us believed that. That night, I drove past the house again. Couldn't help myself. It was like it was calling me. The street was quiet. Most houses had their lights on, families inside having dinner or watching TV. Normal life. And then there was 1247. Dark and sealed. But as I watched, I saw it again. That faint glow, moving through the rooms. This time I didn't call anyone, just watched. The light moved from back to front, then stopped in the middle room. Stayed there, steady and unchanging. Then I saw something that made my heart stop. A shadow passed in front of the light. A human silhouette, visible for just a moment through the crack in the boards. Someone was in there. Someone was actually in that sealed house. I got out of my car, hand on my weapon, approached the front door. The chain was intact. Went around back. Also sealed, but I could see the light clearly from the backyard, and shadows moving inside. More than one person now, moving through the rooms. I called it in. 3rd time in 3 days we were responding to this address. Dispatch was starting to ask questions. More units arrived. We cut the chain again and went inside. Empty. No lights, no people, no shadows. Just that oppressive heat and the smell of ozone. The sergeant who'd responded looked at me and Caleb like we were losing it. "You 2 need some time off?" he asked. "We saw lights," I insisted. "Multiple witnesses saw them." "In a sealed house with no power." "Right." He had us document everything and leave. The house was sealed again. We were told to stop responding to calls about it unless there was clear evidence of a break-in. As we drove away, I looked back one more time. The light was back. Moving through the rooms like it had never stopped. But this time, nobody else seemed to see it. October 8th arrived. The date from the report we'd found. I woke up that morning with a sense of dread I couldn't shake. Caleb and I were both scheduled for day shift. We'd agreed the night before that we wouldn't go near North Rampart Street. Let someone else handle any calls for that address. But of course, the city had other plans. We were 2 hours into our shift when dispatch called. Unit 6-4, we have another complaint about 1247 North Rampart. Caller says they saw someone breaking in. Caleb and I looked at each other. Dispatch, can you assign another unit? Caleb asked. We've responded to this address multiple times in the past few days. Negative 6-4. You're closest and you know the location. Please respond. We had no choice. When we arrived, there was a woman waiting on the sidewalk. Late 60s, lived in the house next door. She was the one who'd called. I saw him, she said before we even got out of the car. Saw him clear as day. A man going in the back door. The back door is chained shut, ma'am, I said. I know what I saw. He walked right up to that door and went inside. We went around back. The chain was intact, the padlock unbroken. But there on the concrete stoop were fresh muddy footprints, same as before, leading right up to the door and stopping. Ma'am, what did this man look like? Caleb asked. White guy, maybe 40, 50, wearing old clothes, work shirt and pants. Walked funny, like he was limping. What time did you see this? Maybe 20 minutes ago. I called right away. We thanked her, and she went back to her house, though she kept watching from her window. We're going back in, I said. Yeah. We called for authorization and the city worker with bolt cutters. While we waited, I studied those footprints. They were real. Fresh mud, clear tread pattern. Someone had definitely walked up to this door, but they hadn't walked away, and they couldn't have gone through a chained door. Unless they could. The city worker arrived, cut the chain. We opened the door and went inside. The heat hit us immediately. Even worse than before, had to be over 100 degrees. The air was so thick it was hard to breathe. We cleared the house room by room, all empty. No signs of any intrusion. In the back room, the table was still there, and on it, 2 reports. I picked them up with gloved hands. The first was the one from 2005. Marchetti's report about the looting investigation. The second was dated today, October 8, 2025. And it was identical to what we were doing right now. The report described us responding to a break-in call, finding footprints, entering the house, finding these very reports. At the bottom, in the follow-up section, there was that same note, property to remain sealed. No further investigation recommended. But this time there was something else. A second paragraph, written in different handwriting. Caleb's handwriting. Officer Fontenot entered the property alone at approximately 1600 hours. Did not return. Search initiated. I showed it to Caleb. He read it, face going pale. I didn't write that, he said. I know. It says you went in alone and didn't come back. It's 1300 hours now. That's 3 hours from now. We stood there in that sweltering room, holding a report that described my disappearance. A disappearance that hadn't happened yet, but apparently would. We're leaving, Caleb said. Right now. We're sealing this place up and we're never coming back. Agreed. We photographed the reports, bagged them, and left. Had the city worker put on a new chain and padlock. Made sure it was secure. Then we went back to the station and filed our report. Again, we left out the impossible parts. Just noted we'd found more copies of old reports and recommended the property remain sealed. Our shift ended at 1500 hours. 3 p.m., 1 hour before the time mentioned in that report. Go home, Caleb said. Get out of here. Don't come back to this district tonight. What about you? I'll finish up the paperwork. Make sure everything's filed. Then I'm going home too. You sure? Yeah, get out of here, Elias. I left the station, drove away from Trame, away from North Rampart Street, went to my apartment in Mid-City and tried to relax. But at 15:30 hours, 3:30 p.m., I got a call from Caleb. "Elias, I need you to come back." "What? Why?" "There's been another call about the house. Woman next door says she saw you go inside." "That's impossible. I'm at home." "I know, but she's insistent. Says she saw you specifically, described your uniform, your badge number." "My badge number? How could she know that?" "I'm on my way." I broke every speed limit getting back to North Rampart Street. Caleb was already there, along with 2 other units. The neighbor was on her porch, pointing at the house. "That's him," she said when she saw me. "That's the officer I saw go inside." "Ma'am, I haven't been here," I said. "I've been off duty." "I saw you 30 minutes ago. You went to the back door and it just opened for you. No chain, no lock, nothing. You walked right in." "The door's chained," Caleb said. "We can all see it." But the woman was adamant. She'd seen me go inside, seen me clear as day. We checked the back door, chain intact, but there were new muddy footprints on the stoop, and these were different. Smaller, the right size for my boots. Caleb looked at me. "Your boots clean?" I checked. No mud. I hadn't been anywhere muddy. "This doesn't make sense," I said. "None of it makes sense, but we need to check inside. If there's any chance someone's in there." We got authorization. Cut the chain again. 4th time in less than a week. The house was waiting for us. That same oppressive heat. That ozone smell. The empty rooms. We cleared it together this time. Stayed within sight of each other, no splitting up. But there was nobody inside. Just us, and that heat and the creaking of old wood. In the back room, the table had new reports. I didn't even want to look at them. But Caleb did. He picked them up, read them. "Elias," he said quietly, "you need to see this." The first report was the same. Marchetti, 2005. The second was dated October 8, 2025, today. But it was different from the one we'd seen this morning. This one described me entering the property at 1600 hours. Described Caleb and other units searching for me. And at the bottom, in my handwriting, "I understand now. The house needs what it needs. I'm staying. Don't come looking for me. Seal it up and forget about it." I stared at the words. That was my handwriting, my signature at the bottom, but I hadn't written it. "It's 15:45, Caleb said, checking his watch. 15 minutes. Until what? Until whatever's supposed to happen." We left the house. Stood in the backyard, watching the back door. The other officers had cleared out, called to other incidents. It was just us now. The minutes ticked by. 15:50. 15:55. At 15:59 I felt it, a pull. Like something was tugging at me, trying to draw me toward the house. "You feel that?" I asked Caleb. "No, what?" Like the house is calling." He grabbed my arm. "Fight it. Whatever it is, don't listen." But the pull was getting stronger. I could hear something now. Voices, faint and distant, coming from inside the house. They were calling my name. "Elias, Elias, we're waiting. Come inside, come home." "Do you hear that?" I asked. "Hear what? Elias, there's nothing." But there was. The voices were getting louder, more insistent. And that pull was overwhelming. Like gravity had shifted, like the house was the center of everything and I was falling toward it. My watch beeped. 1600 hours, 4 p.m. The back door swung open. By itself. The chain was still there, still locked. But the door opened anyway, swinging inward to reveal the dark interior. The voices were clear now, multiple voices overlapping. "Come in, come home, we've been waiting so long, come home, Elias." I took a step toward the door. Caleb tackled me. We went down hard on the concrete, his weight pinning me. "No, Elias, snap out of it." The pull broke. The voices stopped. The door slammed shut with a bang that echoed down the block. I lay there on the ground, breathing hard. What the hell was that? I don't know, but we're leaving now. He hauled me to my feet and practically dragged me to his cruiser, shoved me in the passenger seat. We drove away, and I didn't look back, but I could feel it. The house, watching us leave. Disappointed. Hungry. We went back to the station. Caleb called in a detective, someone who could take over the case. Yvette Marchand showed up, the same detective who'd been investigating strange occurrences in the quarter. We told her everything. The reports, the dates, the voices, all of it. She listened without interrupting. Then she pulled out a file. "I've been tracking incidents related to properties like this, places that seem to exist in multiple times at once. 1247 North Rampart is one of 6 addresses in the city with similar patterns. What's causing it?" I asked. "I don't know, but I have a theory. The city's been here a long time. Built on swampland, survived disasters, accumulated history. Some places, the weight of all that time, it creates weak points. Places where past and present overlap. Like that house. Exactly. And sometimes those places want to keep things, preserve them, add to their collection of moments that refuse to end. The people who disappeared," Caleb said. "The ones who lived there. Still there, in a sense, trapped in their own timelines, living the same moments over and over. And the house wants more. It's always hungry for more. It wanted me, yes, and it almost got you." If Caleb hadn't been there, she didn't finish. Didn't need to. "What do we do?" I asked. "We can't just leave it there. What if it takes someone else? It's already sealed. We add more warnings, more security, and we wait. For what? For it to quiet down again. These places go through cycles, active periods and dormant periods. Right now, 1247 is active. But it'll fade eventually. Go quiet for another decade or two. And then it'll wake up again. Call to someone else, and we'll deal with it then." It wasn't a satisfying answer, but it was the only one we had. The house was sealed again, this time with extra chains, posted notices, police tape. We made sure every entry point was secured. For a week, nothing happened. No lights, no footprints, no calls from neighbors. Then, 8 days after I'd almost been taken, I drove past the house late at night. Just checking, making sure it was still secure. And I saw it. A light in the window, moving through the rooms, front to middle to back. I didn't call it in, just watched. The light moved, steady and purposeful. And in that middle room, I saw a shadow. A human shape, standing still. Then another shadow joined it, and another. Soon there were dozens of them, all crowded into that small space, all standing perfectly still, waiting. I drove away and didn't go back. What else could I do? The house was still there, still hungry, still collecting moments and people who'd stumbled into its gravitational pull. But it didn't have me. Not yet. Though sometimes, late at night, I still hear those voices, calling my name, inviting me home. And I wonder how long I can resist. How long before I find myself standing in front of that back door, watching it swing open, hearing those voices welcome me in. The house is patient. It's been there since 1894. It can wait, and someday, maybe tomorrow, maybe years from now, I'll answer that call. I'll walk through that door. and I'll take my place among the shadows, frozen in time, waiting for the next person to stumble into the house's trap. Because that's what these places do. They call and call and call, and eventually, everyone answers. Everyone comes home. 2 months passed. November turned to December, and New Orleans prepared for the holidays. The weather finally cooled off, though in this city that just means it dropped into the 70s instead of the 90s. I tried to put the house on North Rampart behind me, focused on regular police work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was unfinished, that the house wasn't done with me yet. Caleb noticed. We were partners again after a brief reassignment to different shifts. He'd catch me staring off into space sometimes, or notice when I drove out of my way to avoid North Rampart Street entirely. "You still thinking about it?" he asked one day. "Hard not to. Marchand said it would go dormant. Has it?" He didn't answer. We both knew it hadn't. Every week, like clockwork, dispatch would get a call about the property. Lights seen inside, sounds of movement. And each time another unit would respond, break the seal, find nothing. The house was playing with us, with the entire department. I started researching the history more deeply. Spent my off hours at the library, going through old records and newspapers, trying to understand what made that house different. I found more disappearances, way more than the 2 I'd initially discovered. In 1901, 7 years after the house was built, a dock worker named Baptiste Thibault lived there with his wife. He vanished one winter night. Wife woke up. He was gone. Never seen again. In 1923, a jazz musician rented a room in the house, disappeared mid-December. His horn was found in the house, but he wasn't. In 1948, a widower moved in. Lasted 3 months before he vanished. Neighbors said they saw him go into the house one evening. Never saw him come out. And on and on. Every 10 to 20 years, someone disappeared from that house. The pattern was consistent. Mid-December, usually. Between the 10th and 15th. Today was December 10th. I showed my research to Caleb and Marchand. We met at a coffee shop away from the station, somewhere we could talk freely. Every 10 to 20 years, Marchand said, studying my notes. Like a cycle. The last one was Marcel Doucet in 1977, I said. That's almost 50 years ago. So it's overdue. Way overdue. Caleb sipped his coffee. You think that's why it's so active now? Why it went after you? Maybe. It's been dormant too long. It's hungry. Marchand pulled out her own files. I've been tracking Officer Marchetti, the one who filed that report in 2005. He died in December 2006, December 13th specifically. Single car accident. Drove off the road into the bayou. Suicide? I asked. Ruled accidental. But his family said he'd been acting strange for months, talking about a house calling to him, hearing voices. My blood went cold. The same things I experienced. Yes. So the house didn't get him immediately. It took a year. But it got him. That's my theory. We sat in silence. The coffee shop was busy with holiday shoppers, people laughing and chatting. Normal life happening all around us. And we were talking about a house that collected people across time. What do we do? Caleb asked. Marchand leaned back. Officially, nothing. The house is sealed. We've done everything we can. And unofficially, I think we need to go back in, find out what it really is. Why it wants people. That's insane, I said. We barely got out last time. I know. But this isn't going to stop. It'll keep calling to you. And eventually, it'll win. Unless we end this. How do you end a place that exists across time? I don't know yet, but we need to try. We made a plan. December 13th, the anniversary of Marchetti's death. We'd go into the house together, all three of us. We'd document everything, try to understand the phenomenon. And maybe, if we were lucky, we'd find a way to break the cycle. It was a terrible plan, but it was the only one we had. The next 2 days, I prepared. Read everything I could find about the house, about the disappearances, about similar phenomena in other cities. New Orleans wasn't the only place with buildings that seemed to exist outside normal time. There were reports from San Francisco, Charleston, Savannah. Old cities with deep histories, but none of them had the pattern I was seeing, the regular cycle of disappearances, the specific targeting of individuals. 1247 North Rampart was unique. On December 12th, the day before we planned to enter the house, I got a call from the neighbor, the elderly woman who'd been reporting the incidents. "Officer Fontenot? I'm sorry to bother you at home. I got your number from the station." "It's fine, ma'am. What's wrong?" "It's the house. I saw him again. The man who lives there." "Ma'am, nobody lives there. It's been sealed for years." "I know what the signs say, but I saw him tonight. In the window. An old man. Must be 70, 80. He was looking right at me." "Which window?" "The middle room. The one facing my house. He stood there for maybe 5 minutes, just staring. Then he stepped back and disappeared." "What time was this?" "About an hour ago, around 8 p.m. I thanked her and hung up. Then I called Caleb and Marchand. "We need to go tonight. It's getting more active." We met at North Rampart at 10 p.m. The street was quiet, most people inside for the night. The house sat dark and silent, but I could feel it watching us. We had the authorization paperwork ready, cut the chain ourselves this time. No need to wait for the city worker. The door swung open and we entered. Flashlights cutting through the darkness. The heat hit us immediately. Even worse than before. The thermometer Marchand brought registered 108 degrees. "How is this possible?" Caleb muttered. "It's not," Marchand said. "At least, not according to physics as we understand it." We moved through the front room, our lights catching details I hadn't noticed before. The wallpaper wasn't just peeling randomly. There were patterns in how it hung. Symbols, almost. Circles and lines that might have been decorative once, but now looked deliberate. Intentional. In the middle room, we found something new. Furniture. A table and chairs, arranged as if for a meal. But they were rotted, ancient, wood crumbling with age. "These weren't here before," Caleb said. "Yes, they were," I said. "We just couldn't see them." Marchand took photos. The house is showing us more, letting us see what it really is. We moved to the back room. The small table was there, but now it had more than just reports on it. There were objects, personal items, a pocket watch, its crystal cracked, a pair of glasses, a child's toy soldier, a woman's hairbrush. "These are from the people who disappeared," I said, picking up the pocket watch. The inscription inside read, "To Baptiste with love, 1900. Baptiste Thibault." The dock worker who'd vanished in 1901. The other items were similar, belongings from different eras, all carefully arranged on that table like a shrine. "The house is keeping them," Marchand said. "Not just the people, their things, their moments, their time." As she spoke, the temperature dropped, not to normal, but enough that we could feel the difference, from 108 to maybe 90. Still hot, but better. And we heard something. Footsteps, coming from the front room. Slow, deliberate steps on the wooden floor. We moved to the doorway between the middle and front rooms. Our flashlights illuminated the space. There was a man standing there. Old, just like the neighbor had described, wearing clothes from maybe the 1940s. He was looking at us, but there was something wrong with his eyes. They were vacant, unfocused, like he was seeing through us to something else. "Sir?" I called out. "NOPD, can you hear me?" He didn't respond, just stood there, swaying slightly. Then another figure appeared. A woman, younger, 1920s dress. She stood next to the man, also vacant, also swaying. More appeared. A child, a dock worker in old coveralls, a man in a business suit from the 1960s. They filled the front room, all of them standing perfectly still, all of them staring at nothing. "The people who disappeared," Caleb said quietly. "They're all here." And they were. Decades of missing persons, all crowded into that small room. Trapped in time. Frozen in the moment the house took them. One of them moved. The old man, the one we'd seen first. He raised his hand, pointing at me. "Elias Fontenot," he said. His voice was dry, crackling. "We've been waiting." The others echoed him. "Waiting, waiting, waiting." "Waiting for what?" I asked. "For you to join us, to complete the cycle, to make us whole." The figures started moving forward. Slow, shuffling steps. Not threatening, but inexorable. Like a tide coming in. "We need to leave," Marchand said. "Now." But when we turned to the back door, there were more figures there, blocking our exit. Dozens of them, all from different eras, all trapped in the house's collection. "There's no leaving," the old man said. "Not until the house is fed. Not until someone new joins us. It's been too long. The house is hungry." They were surrounding us now, pressing in from all sides. I could feel that pull again, that gravity dragging me towards something I couldn't see. "Fight it," Caleb said. "Like before. Fight it." But this was stronger than before, much stronger. The house had been patient, building its strength, and now it was ready to take what it wanted. The figures were touching us now. Their hands were cold despite the heat. Each touch sent a jolt through me, like static electricity but deeper, like they were pulling at something fundamental. Then Marchand did something unexpected. She pulled out a lighter and set fire to one of the old reports on the table. The reaction was immediate. The figures recoiled, making sounds of distress. The house itself seemed to groan, the wooden floors creaking like they were in pain. "The reports!" Marchand shouted. "They're anchors. They tie the house to specific moments." She grabbed more reports from the table, setting them alight. The fire caught quickly on the old paper. The figures were screaming now, not in pain, but in anguish. Their forms flickering like bad TV reception. "Help me!" Marchand yelled. Caleb and I grabbed more documents. There were dozens of them, all filed on that table. Reports from different years, different incidents. All of them tying the house to specific points in time. We set them all on fire. The flames spread quickly in the dry, hot air. The figures were fading now, becoming translucent. The old man reached out toward us one last time. "Please," he said. Don't leave us here. Don't make us be alone again." But we couldn't stop. The reports burned, and with each one that turned to ash, the house's grip loosened. The temperature started to drop. The oppressive feeling lifted. The last report burned, and with it, the figures disappeared completely. Not violently, just faded, like they'd never been there at all. We stood in the empty house, smoke rising from the ashes on the table. The temperature had normalized, maybe 80 degrees, which for New Orleans in December was actually high, but it felt normal, real. Did we free them? I asked. Or did we destroy them? Marchand looked at the ashes. I don't know. Maybe both. We left the house. As we crossed the threshold, I felt different. Lighter. That pull, that constant tug toward the house was gone. We sealed it up again. But this time it felt different. Final. The next day, I drove past the house. No lights in the windows, no shadows. Just an old, abandoned shotgun house, slowly rotting away. The calls to dispatch stopped. No more lights, no more sounds. The neighbors reported nothing unusual. Marchand checked on the property records. The city had decided to demolish the house. Too much structural damage, too much of a liability. It was scheduled to come down in January. On the day they demolished it, I watched from across the street. The heavy equipment tore into the old wood, pulling the structure apart piece by piece. When they reached the middle room, the one where all those figures had appeared, the demolition crew found something. A space under the floor, a crawl space that shouldn't have existed in a shotgun house. Inside were bones. Dozens of sets of bones. All the people who'd disappeared over the years. All of them buried under that middle room. Under the house that had kept their spirits trapped for decades. The coroner's office identified as many as they could. Some were too old, too deteriorated. But they matched dental records, old missing persons reports. Baptiste Thibault, the jazz musician, Marcel Doucet, all of them. And Officer Joseph Marchetti. He was there too, though he'd supposedly died in a car accident in 2006. His body had never been recovered from the bayou. Turned out he'd never been in the bayou at all. He'd gone back to the house, answered the call, and the house had kept him. But now they were all free. The bones were given proper burials. The families, those who were still alive, got closure. The ones with no families left were buried in a city cemetery with a marker recognizing them as victims. The lot where the house stood was cleared and paved over. The city turned it into a small park. Nothing elaborate, just grass and a few benches. A place for the neighborhood to gather. Sometimes I visit that park, sit on one of the benches, and I think about those people, trapped for so long. About how we freed them, or destroyed them, or maybe both. I don't hear the voices anymore, don't feel that pull. Whatever the house was, whatever it wanted, it's gone now. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder, did we really break the cycle, or did we just reset it? Will another house, somewhere in the city, start calling to people? Will another collection begin? New Orleans is old, built on layers of history, tragedy, disaster, and some of that history refuses to stay buried. We did what we could, saved who we could save. The rest is beyond our control. That's what I tell myself anyway. Most nights, I even believe it. Spring came to New Orleans. The temperature climbed back into the 80s. The city shook off winter and prepared for Mardi Gras season. I was still partnered with Caleb. We worked our shifts, responded to calls. Life went back to normal, or as normal as it gets in this city. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd missed something. That the house on North Rampart had shown us the tip of something much larger. The dream started about 2 weeks after the demolition. Not every night, but often enough to worry me. I'd find myself walking through that house again. Except it was fully furnished. People living there, going about their lives. Different people in each room, from different eras. They'd look at me as I passed through. Their eyes following me, but never speaking. In the dreams, I could see through the walls to the crawl space beneath. Could see all those bones arranged in careful patterns. Circles within circles. Like someone had placed them deliberately, creating some kind of diagram. I mentioned it to Caleb during a late-night patrol. We were cruising through the Garden District, quiet streets lined with mansions. You think the bones were arranged that way on purpose? He asked. In the dreams they are. But when the coroner pulled them out, he didn't mention any pattern. Dreams aren't evidence. I know. But what if they're memory? What if I saw something that day and my subconscious is trying to tell me? Caleb was quiet for a moment. You think someone was practicing something? Like some kind of ritual? I don't know what I think. But shotgun houses weren't designed with crawl spaces. Someone dug those spaces out, deliberately created room to hide bodies. That takes planning, intent. We drove in silence for a while. Then Caleb said, "We should talk to Marchand." Marchand felt it too. We'd meet for coffee every few weeks, compare notes. She was still tracking anomalies across the city, places where time seemed to bend, where the past refused to stay in the past. This time, when we met, I brought copies of the coroner's reports, photos from the excavation. Marchand spread them out on the table, studying each one carefully. "I've found 3 more," she said, not looking up from the photos. 3 more properties with similar patterns to North Rampart. Active? Not yet, but they're showing signs, calls from neighbors, unexplained phenomena. What are you going to do? Document them, watch them, wait to see if they escalate. And if they do? She sipped her coffee, finally looking up. Then we do what we did before. Go in, break the connection. Free whoever's trapped. If we can. If we can. She tapped one of the photos. You see this? The way the remains were positioned. The coroner noted it, but didn't think much of it. But look. I looked. The photo showed the crawl space before the bones were removed. And now that she pointed it out, I could see it. They weren't just buried haphazardly. There was a pattern. Bodies arranged in a rough circle, skulls facing inward. Someone did this deliberately, Marchand said. Created a configuration. And I think that's what trapped them. Not just death, but the way they were buried, the pattern. You're saying someone was trying to create these time loops? On purpose? Maybe not loops, maybe more like anchors. Ways to tie spirits to specific locations. Keep them from moving on. Why would anyone do that? She pulled out another folder. This one contained old newspaper clippings, photocopies of handwritten journals. I've been researching. Found references to similar practices in Haitian Vodou, in old Creole folk magic. The idea of binding spirits to places, using them as guardians or as sources of power. That's insane. Is it? We've seen what we've seen. Houses that exist across time. Spirits that can affect the physical world. If you believed in that kind of thing, believed you could harness it, why wouldn't you try? Caleb leaned forward. So you think there's someone out there deliberately creating these situations? Killing people and burying them in patterns to create haunted houses? Not anymore. These are old. Decades old. Some of them over a century. But yes, I think someone did this. Maybe multiple people over the years, creating these anchors across the city. For what purpose? That's what I'm trying to figure out. We talked about Officer Marchetti, about how he'd been compelled to return to the house even a year after his first encounter, about how it had ultimately claimed him. Do you think about it? She asked. About how close you came. Every day. Any lingering effects, dreams, compulsions? I hesitated. The dreams were effects, weren't they? But I'd been downplaying them, even to myself. Dreams, I admitted. I see the house, see the patterns in the bones. It's like my mind is trying to work out what we saw. She nodded, making notes. That's normal. Trauma response. You witnessed something that shouldn't exist according to your understanding of reality. Your brain is trying to process it. Is that all it is? Probably, but keep monitoring it. If the dreams intensify or if you start experiencing anything else, tell me immediately. What about you? Any effects? She was quiet for a moment, and I saw something flicker across her face. Fear, maybe, or recognition. I hear things sometimes, she finally said. Voices. They're not calling to me exactly, more like echoes. Conversations from other times overlapping with now. Since when? Since we went into the house, since we burned those reports. Yvette, you should have said something. What would you have done? It's not dangerous, just disorienting. I'll walk down a street and hear people talking in French. Old French, Creole French from 100 years ago. Or I'll pass a building and hear music that nobody else can hear. That sounds dangerous. Maybe. But it's also useful. I can sense these places now, the ones that exist out of time. I can feel them before they become active. Like a warning system. Exactly. I'll be driving through a neighborhood and suddenly I'll feel it. A pull, a resonance. And 9 times out of 10, when I investigate, I find one of these properties. A place where the boundaries are thin. Have you told anyone else about this? Just you and Caleb. And I'd like to keep it that way. The department already thinks I'm obsessed with cold cases. If they knew I was hearing voices and sensing ghosts, they'd put me on administrative leave. Caleb finished his coffee. So what's the plan? We wait for these 3 properties to escalate, then do the same thing we did before. That's the reactive approach, Marchand said. But I'm thinking we should be proactive. Get ahead of it. How? By mapping the pattern. All of these properties, they're scattered across the city, but I think there's a design. If we can figure out what that design is, maybe we can predict where the next one will appear. Or, better yet, understand the purpose behind all of this. She pulled out a city map, marked with red dots. Each dot represented a property where we'd found anomalies. North Rampart, the house in Bywater. The 2 others she'd investigated. Look at the distribution, she said. They're not random. They form a rough arc around the French Quarter, and if you extend the pattern, she drew lines between the dots, then continued the arc. It curved around the old city, following the original settlement boundaries. You think there are more? I asked. I know there are. I've already started getting reports from these areas. She tapped the map where her projected arc continued. Tremé, Faubourg Marigny, the Bywater. All of them showing early signs. How many are we talking about? If the pattern holds, maybe a dozen total, maybe more. The scope of it was staggering. Not just 1 or 2 haunted houses, but a network of them. All connected, all serving some purpose we didn't understand yet. We need help, Caleb said. This is too big for the 3 of us. Who would believe us? Marchand asked. We go to the department with this, they'll think we've lost our minds. We need proof, hard evidence, something undeniable. The bodies are evidence. Bodies prove murder, not hauntings. We need to catch the phenomena in action, document it in a way that can't be disputed. We finished our coffee and went our separate ways, but I thought about what she'd said. About hearing echoes, about sensing the anomalies, about the pattern that might connect all of these places. That night I couldn't sleep, kept thinking about the map, about those red dots forming an arc around the old city. What were they protecting? Or containing? Around 2 a.m. I gave up on sleep and drove through the city. No destination in mind, just driving. Let my instincts guide me. I found myself in Tremé, not far from where North Rampart had been. The streets were quiet, a few cars passing. Most houses dark. Then I felt it. What Marchand had described. A pull, subtle but definite. Like the air itself was tugging at me, drawing me towards something. I followed the feeling, turned down one street, then another. The pull got stronger. It led me to a shotgun house on St. Philip Street. Narrow, old, painted a faded blue. Lights off, but I could see someone had been maintaining it. The yard was neat, the porch swept clean. I parked across the street and watched. The pull was strong here. Not like North Rampart had been, not that overwhelming gravity, but something similar, a resonance. My phone rang. Marchand. "Where are you?" she asked. "St. Philip Street, in Tremé. How did you know?" "I felt it too, the pull. I'm 10 minutes away. You can feel it from that far. It's getting stronger. The sensitivity, I mean. The more of these places I encounter, the more attuned I become." She arrived in an unmarked car. We sat together, watching the house. "I've driven past this place a dozen times," she said. "Never felt anything before, but tonight it's active. Should we call Caleb?" "Not yet. Let's just observe, see what happens." We watched for an hour. Nothing visible, but that pull remained. Constant, insistent. Then, around 3:30 a.m., we saw movement. Not in the house, but around it. Shadows forming in the yard, on the porch. Not cast by any light source. Just appearing, dark patches against the darkness. "You seeing this?" I asked. "Yeah." The shadows moved with purpose, circling the house in a slow, deliberate pattern, round and round, like they were performing some kind of ritual. Marchand was taking photos with a night vision camera. "This is it. This is the evidence we need." But as she said it, the shadows stopped. All of them, simultaneously. They turned toward our car, toward us. "Can they see us?" I asked. "I don't know, but they know we're here." The shadows began moving toward us, slow, gliding across the street like oil spreading on water. "Start the car," Marchand said. I did. Put it in gear. But the shadows were already surrounding us, pressing against the windows, blocking our view. Through the darkness, I could hear voices. The same overlapping conversations Marchand had described. Different languages, different eras, all of them asking the same question in different words. "Why did you come? Why did you disturb us?" The temperature in the car dropped. I could see my breath. The windows began to frost over from the inside. "We're leaving," Marchand said loudly. "We're not here to harm you. We're leaving." But the shadows didn't move. They pressed closer. The voices got louder, more insistent. Then I remembered what had worked before. Fire. Not literal fire, but the burning of those reports. The destruction of the anchors. "The pattern," I said. "We need to disrupt the pattern." I threw the car into reverse and punched the gas. The tires screeched. We shot backward, away from the circle of shadows. The moment we broke free of their formation, they dissipated. Vanished like smoke. The temperature normalized. The voices stopped. We drove several blocks before pulling over. Both of us were shaking. "That was different," Marchand said. "More aggressive than the others. Because we came to them. We sought them out instead of waiting for them to call us. Maybe. Or maybe because we've freed the others, broken those patterns, and now the remaining ones are defensive, protecting themselves." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Marchand said, "We need to be more careful. This isn't just about freeing trapped spirits anymore. There's something intelligent behind this, something that doesn't want us interfering." "You think the spirits themselves?" "I think whatever created this network, whatever buried those bodies in those patterns, some part of them, or their intent, is still active, still working to maintain the anchors. So, we're not just fighting ghosts. we're fighting whoever created all of this. Yes, even if they're long dead themselves. The next day, we met again. This time with Caleb in Marchand's office at the station. She'd printed out all her research, spread it across her desk. "I think I know what we're dealing with," she said. "I've been cross-referencing historical records, old police reports, everything I can find. And there's a pattern within the pattern." She pulled out a timeline, in 1894 to 1923. Over that 30-year period, there were a series of murders across the city, all unsolved. All victims found in or near shotgun houses. And in every case, the bodies showed signs of ritualistic placement. "How many victims?" Caleb asked. "At least 20, possibly more. The records from that era are incomplete. But what's interesting is when the murders stopped." "When?" 1923, the last confirmed case. After that, nothing. No more ritualistic murders, no more bodies found in crawl spaces. It's like whoever was doing this just stopped. "Or died," I suggested. "Or was stopped," Marchand countered. I found a reference in an old newspaper. A fire in the French Quarter in December 1923 killed several people. One of them was a woman named Celestine Devereaux. She was known in certain circles as a practitioner of the old ways. Voodoo, folk magic, that sort of thing. "You think she was the one creating the anchors?" "I think she was part of it. Maybe the leader. The fire destroyed her home and everything in it. After she died, the murders stopped." Caleb studied the timeline. "But the anchors remained, the patterns she created. They kept working even after she was gone." "Exactly. Like a machine that keeps running even after its creator dies. And we've been dismantling that machine, one anchor at a time." "And something doesn't like that," I said. "What we saw last night, those shadows attacking us. That was defensive, protective." Marchand nodded. "The system is trying to preserve itself, and it's going to fight back harder as we take apart more of it." We sat with that for a moment. The scope of what we were facing was becoming clear. This wasn't just about freeing a few trapped spirits. We were dismantling a century-old network of dark magic, created by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. "So, what do we do?" Caleb asked. "We continue," Marchand said. "But smarter. We don't go to the sites until we're ready. We research each one thoroughly. We bring the right equipment, and we don't go alone." "Equipment?" She opened a drawer and pulled out several objects. Salt, iron nails, old religious medals, things that looked like they belonged in a horror movie, not a police investigation. "If we're fighting magic," she said, "we need to fight with magic, or at least with the traditional protections against it." Over the next week, we prepared. Marchand researched each of the remaining sites, found out who owned them, who'd lived there, what history they held. Caleb and I gathered supplies, learned about the old protections and wards. It felt ridiculous. We were cops, not ghost hunters. But we'd seen what we'd seen, and if salt and iron nails gave us even a small edge, we'd use them. "Elias, you need to get down here." "Where?" "Bywater. We've got a situation." 20 minutes later, I pulled up to an address on Chartres Street, down near the Industrial Canal. It was another shotgun house, this one still occupied. Lights on, people home. Caleb met me on the sidewalk. Family called it in. Said their house is making sounds. Footsteps in the empty rooms, voices, and the temperature's all wrong. Wrong how? Hot. Way too hot. They've got AC running full blast, but it's still over 90 degrees inside. My stomach dropped. "This is one of Marchand's properties, isn't it? One of the 3 she's tracking." "Yeah, she's on her way." We went inside. The family who lived there, the Landrys, were huddled in the front room. Parents, 2 kids. They looked terrified. "It started 3 days ago," Mr. Landry said. "Just little things at first. Objects moving, doors opening by themselves. We thought maybe we had mice. Then last night," Mrs. Landry continued, "we heard voices coming from the back bedroom. We don't use that room. It's just storage, but we could hear people talking in there." "What were they saying?" I asked. "We couldn't make it out. It was like listening to a conversation through a wall. Muffled, but definitely voices, more than one." Caleb and I exchanged a look. This was too familiar. Marchand arrived. She brought equipment this time. Thermal cameras, audio recorders, instruments I didn't recognize. "I'm going to set these up," she said. "Document whatever's happening. Then we figure out how to stop it." We placed the family in a hotel for the night. They left willingly, not wanting to stay in the house another minute. Once they were gone, we set up the equipment, cameras in every room, audio recorders, temperature sensors. Then we waited. For the first hour, nothing happened. The house was quiet, normal. The temperature was high, but not impossibly so. Then, around midnight, the readings started to spike. Temperature in the back bedroom jumped to 105 degrees. Audio recorders picked up voices. We rushed to the room. It was packed with boxes and old furniture. But in the middle of the floor, there was a clear space. And in that space, shadows. Not physical objects, not people, just shadows. Dark patches that moved independently of any light source. They swirled and shifted, occasionally coalescing into almost human shapes before dissolving again. "Are you seeing this?" Caleb asked. "Yeah." The voices were clearer now. Multiple conversations overlapping. Some in English, some in French. Some in languages I didn't recognize. One voice separated itself from the others. Female, speaking English with an old-fashioned accent. "We've been waiting so long. Please, let us out." "Out of what?" I called into the room. "The house, the time, the loop. Please, break the cycle." Marchand was recording everything. "How do we break it?" "The foundation. Look beneath. Find where we're buried. Give us peace." The shadows began to fade. The voices diminished. Within minutes, the room was back to normal. Temperature dropping, phenomena ceasing. We looked at each other. "The foundation," I said. "Like North Rampart, there are bodies buried here too." We got permission from the Landrys to excavate. It took 2 days of work with ground-penetrating radar and careful digging. We found them. 7 bodies buried in the crawl space under the house. Different time periods, different circumstances. All of them people who'd gone missing over the years from this address. The coroner removed them. Identified who he could. Families were notified, proper burials arranged. And just like that, the phenomena stopped. The house went back to being a normal house. The Landrys moved back in, reported no further incidents. "It's the same pattern," Marchand said. "Bodies buried, spirits trapped, the house existing across multiple times simultaneously. And when we free the dead, it breaks the cycle." "So the other 2 properties you're tracking," Caleb said. "They probably have bodies too. I'm going to get warrants. Check the foundations. If there are remains, we'll remove them before the phenomena escalate." Over the next month, she did exactly that. The first property was on Burgundy Street in the Meridni, a small Creole cottage that had changed hands 6 times in the past decade. Nobody ever stayed long. The current owners, a young couple from California, had been there 3 weeks when the incident started. They described the same things: voices, temperature spikes, shadows moving independently. We got the warrant, excavated the foundation. found 4 bodies dating back to the 1880s, all victims of yellow fever, buried quickly during an epidemic. No proper rites, no consecrated ground, just thrown in a pit and covered with lime. When we gave them proper burials, the phenomena stopped immediately. The couple stayed in the house, reported no further issues. The second property was different. A larger home in the Bywater, closer to the industrial canal. This one had been a boarding house in the 1920s and 30s. Marchand's research showed 3 disappearances over a 10-year span. Residents who'd simply vanished from their rooms. We found them in the walls, literally sealed into the structure during a renovation in 1935. The property owner at the time had been questioned about the disappearances but never charged. He'd died in 1940, took his secrets with him, or so everyone thought. But the house remembered. The house kept those secrets in its walls, in its foundation, in the very boards of its floors. When we opened those walls, when we brought those remains into the light, I felt something. A release, like pressure equalizing. The house itself seemed to sigh. The current owner, an artist who'd been using it as a studio, said the atmosphere changed immediately. "It feels lighter," she told us, "like the building can breathe again. For now, at least." But we all knew this wasn't the end. New Orleans is built on the dead. Centuries of yellow fever, hurricanes, violence. Thousands upon thousands buried in the swampland beneath the city. Many in unmarked graves, many forgotten entirely. Some of them don't rest easy. Some of them reach out, trying to connect with the living, trying to pull the living into their frozen moments, trying to make someone, anyone, acknowledge that they existed, that they died, that they matter. And sometimes they succeed. But now we know how to fight back, how to free them, how to break the cycles. It's become part of my job now. Alongside the regular police work, there's this other duty. Watching for the signs, the houses that get too hot, the voices from empty rooms, the shadows that move on their own, the reports that document events that haven't happened yet. Caleb and I respond to these calls now. Along with Marchand, we've become the department's unofficial paranormal response team. Nobody says it out loud. Nobody acknowledges what we're really doing. The reports we file are carefully worded, clinical, avoiding any mention of the impossible things we've witnessed. But when a call comes in that sounds like an anomaly, we're the ones who get sent. The duty sergeants know. They don't understand it, don't want to understand it, but they know we can handle these situations, that we won't panic, won't spread rumors, won't make the department look foolish. Sometimes we find bodies. Sometimes we don't. But we always find something. Some connection to the past that refuses to let go. A photograph left on a mantel. A name scratched into a floorboard. A piece of clothing stuffed behind a wall. Evidence of lives lived and lost, of moments frozen in time. And we do what we can. Give the dead peace when we can find their remains. Document their stories when we can't. Acknowledge their existence. Make sure they're not forgotten again. Protect the living. Break the cycles when we can. It's not in any manual, not part of any official training, but it's real work, important work. I started keeping my own records, a private file separate from official reports. Every anomaly we investigate, I document fully. The impossible temperatures, the voices from empty rooms, the shadows, the reports from the future, all of it. Marchand does the same. Between us, we're building a comprehensive database of these phenomena. Patterns emerge when you look at enough data. Certain addresses appear more frequently. Certain dates. Certain types of deaths seem more likely to create hauntings. Violence, obviously. Sudden, unexpected death, but also abandonment. People who died alone, forgotten, children especially. The young seem to imprint more strongly on places. Their confusion, their need for comfort, it lingers. We've learned that some hauntings are residual, just echoes, replaying the same moments over and over. These are harmless, though disturbing. We document them but don't intervene. They'll fade eventually, given enough time. But others are intelligent, active. The spirits are aware, trying to communicate, trying to accomplish something. These are the dangerous ones. These are the ones that can trap the living, pull them into those frozen moments. These are the ones we have to stop. One case in particular stayed with me. Mid-April, a call came in about a house on Esplanade Avenue. Beautiful old mansion, divided into apartments. The tenant on the second floor reported a child crying in the walls. We investigated. Found no physical explanation. But the crying continued. Every night around 8 p.m., a child's sobs coming from inside the walls of the bedroom. We researched the property. In 1918, during the flu pandemic, a family lived there. Parents and 3 children. All 5 died within a week of each other. The youngest, a girl of 4, died last, alone in her bedroom while the rest of the family lay dead in other rooms. Her body had been found days later. Nobody knew how long she'd been alone, crying for parents who would never come. We couldn't excavate. The family had been buried in St. Louis Cemetery No. 3, proper graves with proper markers. But the girl's spirit was still there, still crying for someone to come. Marchand tried something different that night. She sat in that bedroom, alone, lights off, and talked to the crying child. Spoke in a soft, gentle voice. Told her she'd been very brave. Told her it was okay to stop being scared now. That her mama and papa were waiting for her. That they'd been waiting such a long time and they missed her so much. That she could go to them now. That it was safe. That she didn't have to cry anymore. I was standing in the hallway, listening. Caleb was downstairs with the tenant. And for a long time there was just silence. Then Marchand's voice again, quieter this time. "That's right, sweetheart. I can see them too. They're smiling. They're so happy to see you. Go on now. Go to them. It's okay. You're safe now." The crying stopped. Not gradually, not fading away. Just stopped, mid-sob. Like a switch had been flipped. When Marchand came out of the room, her eyes were wet. "She's gone. She finally went to them." The tenant reported no further incidents. Whatever had kept that little girl's spirit trapped for over a century in that moment of fear and abandonment, Marchand's words had released it, given her permission to leave, to find peace. Sometimes, Marchand told us later over coffee, her hands wrapped around the cup for warmth, even though it was 70 degrees outside. They just need permission to leave. They've been waiting so long, stuck in that moment of fear and confusion, they don't know they can move on. They don't know it's allowed. Someone just needs to tell them it's okay. That became part of our protocol. Before excavating, before disturbing anything, before bringing in equipment and teams, we try talking to them first. Give them permission to leave. Acknowledge their pain, their fear, their confusion. Tell them they can go, that they don't have to stay trapped anymore. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. The ones bound by Devereaux's patterns, those usually require more. Require breaking the physical anchors, disrupting the configurations. But the others, the ones who are just lost, just frightened, just waiting for someone to tell them it's over now, those we can help with words alone. It's worth trying, always worth trying, because every spirit we free without excavation is one less family we have to tell that their loved ones were buried in a crawlspace, one less set of bones to pull from the earth, one less horror to document and file away. The work continued through spring and into summer. More houses, more patterns, more bodies buried in crawl spaces that shouldn't exist. We found 12 in total. The network Devereaux created, all mapped out, all documented, all dismantled piece by piece. Each one followed the same pattern. Bodies arranged in circles, houses existing across multiple timelines, temperatures that defied physics, voices from the trapped and the dead. By June, we'd cleared the last of them. The arc around the French Quarter was broken. Whatever Devereaux had built, whatever purpose it served, it was finished now. But the work wasn't done, because New Orleans is full of old places, old pain, old sorrows that refuse to stay buried. Devereaux's network might have been the most organized, the most deliberate, but it wasn't the only source of hauntings in the city. We started getting calls from other neighborhoods, the Garden District, uptown, even out in Metairie. Reports of similar phenomena, though not as organized. These weren't part of any network, just individual tragedies, individual spirits unable or unwilling to move on. We responded to each one, investigated, documented, helped where we could. Sometimes it was as simple as talking to the spirit, giving them permission to leave. Other times it required research, excavation, proper burial of remains that had been hidden or forgotten. The department officially recognized us as specialists in historical property investigations. They didn't use the word haunting, didn't acknowledge what we were really doing, but they sent us the calls that other officers couldn't handle, the ones that didn't make sense, the ones that required someone who understood that reality was more flexible than the manual said it was. It changed how I saw the city, changed how I saw the job. Being a cop isn't just about enforcing laws for the living. It's about maintaining order between all the layers of existence that overlap in this old place. The dead have rights too, in a way. The right to be remembered, the right to rest, the right to have their stories told, even if only to the three of us who would listen. One evening in late June, I was driving through Trame after shift. Just cruising, no destination. The sun was setting, painting the shotgun houses in shades of gold and orange. Music drifted from open windows, jazz, blues, bounce music, all mixing together into that uniquely New Orleans sound. I passed by where North Rampart had stood. The little park was quiet, a couple kids playing on the grass. Normal, peaceful. But I could still feel them sometimes, the spirits we'd freed. Not trapped anymore, not suffering, just present in a quiet way, like they were grateful, like they were watching over the place they'd been bound to for so long, but watching by choice now, not compulsion. It's hard to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it, the difference between a malevolent haunting and a peaceful one, between spirits trapped in pain and spirits who choose to linger out of love. Some hauntings aren't dark. Some are just love, persisting beyond death. A grandmother checking on her old house, making sure the new family is happy there. A jazz musician's melody still echoing in the club where he played for 40 years. A child's laughter in a schoolyard where she spent the happiest days of her brief life. Those ones we leave alone. They're not hurting anyone. They're just reminders that the people we love never truly leave us, that the places we cherish hold something of our spirits long after we're gone. The city teaches you that, if you pay attention. The past isn't dead, it's not even past, as Faulkner said. It's here, layered over the present, visible to those who know how to look. And now, I'm one of those people. Now I can see those layers, feel them, navigate them when necessary. Walk through the French Quarter and see not just the tourists and the bars and the street performers, but also the shadows of everyone who's ever walked these streets. the merchants from the 1700s, the slaves who built the city, the sailors who made port here, the musicians who created the soundtrack, the lovers and the fighters and the dreamers who made New Orleans what it is. They're all still here, in a way, all still part of the city's fabric. And sometimes they need help. Sometimes they need someone to speak for them. Someone to acknowledge their existence, their pain, their joy, their humanity. That's become our purpose. Caleb, Marchand, and me. We're not just cops anymore. We're mediators between the living and the dead. Guardians of the boundary between past and present. Keepers of stories that would otherwise be forgotten. It's a heavy burden sometimes. Walking through the French Quarter on a busy night, surrounded by tourists and music and laughter, but also seeing the shadows that move between the living, the echoes of every drunk who died in an alley, every murder victim, every soul that got lost in this city and never found their way out. But it's also a privilege to be able to help, to be able to give the dead what the living couldn't. Peace, acknowledgement, rest. We protect and serve. That's what we swore to do. Nobody said that oath only applied to the living. So we'll keep doing it. Keep responding to those calls. Keep entering those houses. Keep freeing those spirits. Keep breaking those cycles. Because somebody has to. Somebody has to stand guard against the weight of history. Somebody has to make sure the past stays in the past where it belongs. Somebody has to help the dead find peace so the living can feel safe. That somebody is us. And we're not going anywhere. The city needs us. The dead need us. The living need us. So we'll keep watching. Keep waiting, keep ready for the next house that gets too hot. The next voice from an empty room. The next shadow that moves on its own. The next report from a time that hasn't happened yet. We'll be there. Always. Forever. Protecting this city from itself. Protecting the living from the dead. Protecting the dead from being forgotten. One sealed house at a time. One freed spirit at a time. One broken cycle at a time. That's our mission now. Our calling. And we'll keep answering it. For as long as New Orleans stands, for as long as the dead need someone to speak for them, for as long as the living need someone to keep them safe from the past, we are the guardians, the breakers of cycles, the voices for the voiceless dead, and this is our city, our responsibility, our eternal duty. I finished my shift around 6 a.m. The sun was coming up over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Another night survived, another shift complete. I drove home past the park where 1247 North Rampart used to stand. The grass was green, the benches empty. Just a normal park in a normal neighborhood. But I knew the truth, knew what had been there, what had been trapped there for so long. And I knew there were other places just like it, scattered across the city, waiting for their moment, waiting to collect their own frozen pieces of time. We'd found some of them, freed the people trapped there, broken the cycles, but there were more. There would always be more. That's the nature of this city. Old bones, old sins, old sorrows. They don't disappear just because we want them to. They linger. They wait, they reach out. And when they do, we'll be ready. Caleb, Marchand, and me. The guardians against the past. The breakers of cycles. The ones who stand between the living and the trapped dead. It's not the job I signed up for, but it's the job I have now. And I'll keep doing it. Keep responding to those calls. Keep entering those houses. Keep freeing those spirits. Because somebody has to. Somebody has to stand guard against the weight of history. Somebody has to make sure the past stays in the past. That somebody is us. And we're not going anywhere. The city needs us. The dead need us. The living need us. So we'll keep watching, keep waiting, keep ready for the next house that gets too hot, the next voice from an empty room, the next shadow that moves on its own. We'll be there, always, forever, protecting this city from itself, one sealed house at a time.